On what should have been a peaceful full moon night, a war was actually breaking out, with countless sharp weapons rising and falling, creating a scene of utter chaos. The soldiers roared in unison, "Attack! Take that demon down, over here!" Running for his life, a young man with white hair and a few streaks of blood on his face was being chased by the mob. One man ran, and a whole crowd scrambled after him, each trying to be the first to catch him. Suddenly, an armored soldier appeared and blocked his path, attacking as the entire mob surged forward on command. But he wasn't about to lie still and let them decide his fate. Nock unleashed his own power, surrounding them with his swift and agile body. He created attacks with a purple-colored power, then raised his hand to gather more energy. With that, he slammed one hand to the ground, creating a massive shockwave. They didn't have time to react as the immense force shattered the very earth and rock into pieces. Meanwhile, the armored soldiers were engulfed in purple flames. They stood frozen like statues. Before they could even make a move, Nock had already sent the whole lot of them to their graves. The power inside him continued to radiate non-stop. At the same time, he looked completely exhausted. 3 pairs of red eyes appeared above him. Right now, he looked no different than an utterly ragged vagrant. Nock could barely stand, clutching an iron bar to support himself. He was about to curse. Why, his life was full of nothing but pain, when suddenly something caught his attention. Following his gaze, he saw the legs of a woman stepping closer from behind and heard her voice ask, "Why?" In the darkness, shrouded by the chaos of the battle's aftermath, a red-haired girl appeared before Nock and voiced her question. "Why did you make that decision?" A flash of pain and a flicker of disappointment crossed the girl's face. "Why did you make a pact with a demon? Why did you betray us, Nock von Reinhaber?" She called out his name, loud and clear, just like a teacher calling on a student for an oral exam. Hearing this, Nock clammed up, merely glancing at her before looking up with a dazed expression and lamenting, "Betrayal? If you're scared, go home. As for me, I don't give a damn about offending anyone." He laughed sinisterly, admitting it directly. "Yes, you should think that I betrayed you." After saying that, Nock added that he was the real victim who needed to be cleared. "However, I won't do that, because you all were the ones who betrayed me." Even so, the red-haired girl didn't get angry. Instead, she pressed on with her concerned questions, which made Nock smirk with a hint of happiness. It was just like a domineering CEO looking at a naive little girl. "Stop arguing. Just tell me, since when have you been injured like this?" Nock's dazed expression returned as he began to recount the story. It started like a crash landing. Words appeared, along with the image of a bright blue orb. A notification panel popped up. "You have completed the first part of Inner Lunatic. Total score, 27. In a messy room surrounded by trash, a young man sat in front of a glowing computer screen, musing. "Not bad at all. The cigarette butts have piled into a mountain, and I've gotten a lot of items by now." On the screen, a few lines of notifications appeared. The Great Seal. Clear, complete. Waning Moon, Demon's Punishment. Nock von Reinhaber. Clear, complete. Rose pierced by the sickle's blade. Resolution on the assassination of the royal princess. Clear, complete. The sun rises in the east. Suppression of the rebellion in the Tajalan kingdom. The young man looked at it and praised himself. "I've unlocked so many hidden achievements, I'm very satisfied." The scene suddenly shifted to a calendar with the 6th circled. Hospital day. Except for the fact that I'm going to die next month. The young man's memories began to surface from 2 years ago. "Here is an x-ray of your brain." The doctor sat there with a grave expression and informed Yuchan, "Patient Yukon, please don't be scared. And listen carefully to what I have to say. We don't know what the doctor said, but from his expression, you could probably guess a part of it." Inside a room in a large building, Yuchan sat in silence, staring at the test results in his hand. Concerned questions began to flood in, one after another. "You went to the 20 University Hospital, right?" "You've been to 2 hospitals already?" "We've run a lot of tests." The more he heard, the more anxious Yukon became. "And we've come to the same conclusion. We can prescribe you some painkillers. Use them when the pain gets too severe." The hand holding the test results slowly went limp. The still-sealed bottle of pills simply fell, spilling everywhere. Yuchan was like a soulless husk, completely hopeless. There wasn't a single spark of light left in his eyes. 2 years have passed. Suddenly, something caught Yuchan's attention. It was the pile of unthrown-out trash bags next to a neatly placed calendar. Then Yukon covered his mouth and let out a few coughs. His expression was one of disbelief. What he had coughed up was a mouthful of fresh blood. Am I really going to die? Even if I'm dying, I should at least clean up. Yukon took a tissue and wiped away the streaks of blood. I guess just thinking about it won't change the final outcome. As he was falling into an abyss of despair, a phone notification sound went off. Yukon quickly picked it up and unlocked it. Looking at the message inside, he was momentarily speechless. 20 University Hospital. Checkup appointment confirmation. Name, Yukon. He thought to himself, I have no one to talk to about this. Yukon slumped onto the chair, letting out a long, dazed sigh. No one's contacted me since I lost my memory. There's no one for me to contact. He clutched the blood-stained piece of paper in his hand. I can't go anywhere in my current state. Suddenly, Utah saw a notice on the table. The words on it felt like they were mocking his current situation. A conference for terminal cancer patients. Have unwavering faith. A church flyer. Do you want to become one of our hospice workers? Yuchan immediately lost his composure, crumpling the paper in one hand. He frantically dug through the pile of discarded papers in despair. Tears fell from his eyes. Game over, Yuchan cried, shedding tears of helplessness and anguish. He was sinking deep into an abyss when suddenly a light made him stop crying and look up, looking at the notification window that appeared out of nowhere. Will you start a new game? Yuchan's resolute voice, filled with no regrets, echoed before the end. This is all I have to do. Without a moment's hesitation, Yukon clicked yes. Then another notification reminded him, please enter user information. What is the player's name? K.L. A tear rolled down with the sweat on Yukon's face, yet he still managed to smile, wondering to himself, this time, what kind of character traits should I become? The screen was still displayed, and Yushan decided to choose both options. Let's see. Mana Sensitive Genius. Choose a character attribute. Sword and Martial Arts Genius. Both Mana Sensitive Genius and Sword and Martial Arts Genius. His gaze suddenly shifted to the notification box. If you select 2 or more genius attributes, you will be penalized. Please select 1 or fewer to avoid the penalty. Neutral attribute. Negative attribute. Terminal illness. Seeing that line, Yuchan fell silent again. He never expected such a coincidence. I have a terminal illness, and so does my character. After he finished, the system asked, will you start the game with the chosen character? Why not? Yuchan clicked decisively. Just a second later, his lifeless eyes widened in terror. Yuchan felt like he was being sucked into something. He looked utterly terrified. The shock disoriented Yuchan. The chair wobbled and he trembled, falling hard to the ground, breathing heavily. Am I dead? Just then, the system suddenly announced, character creation successful. At the same time, Yuchan was thinking to himself, I thought death was something I had forgotten about, but at least I want to die fulfilled. Then, the system continued to flash relentlessly. Character name has been forcibly changed. Switching to a different scene, notification images appeared continuously. Synchronizing, 4%, 6%, 19%. Synchronization stopped at 71%. Character setup complete. A young man's body lay peacefully on a bed, breathing rapidly. He suddenly shot up, a look of confusion on his face. Who is this? Where am I? Staring at the spacious room before him, Yuchan, in his new body, couldn't stop wondering, where is this place? As he was enveloped by a sense of déjà vu, he stepped down and looked around. No way, I recognize this place. He walked up to a mirror reflecting his image and raised a hand. Yukon exclaimed, inside this hellish game, realizing it was that familiar face. I've possessed the most evil character. I don't know why, but those words surfaced. That's right. A crash landing. This character's history was gradually recounted. Knox von Reinhaver. He is one of the dark masters of Inner Lunatic, the 3 families with deep ties to the world's most evil criminal organization. The youngest of 5 siblings in the Reinhaver family. The Reinhaver family has produced generations of talented children in both magic and swordsmanship. But among all the members, there was one useless brat. A person born a fool, accused of making a pact with a demon from the Forbidden Realm. He became the worst disaster in the family. Remembering the story of Inner Lunatic, Yuchan, in Nox's body, couldn't help but scratch his head, thinking, becoming Nox, this isn't a dream, is it? As he was feeling helpless, the system suddenly appeared behind him. Here is all the information about the character you now inhabit. Basic information. Name, Knox von Reinhover. Gender, male. Age, 14. Race, human. Main element, darkness. Achievements, none. Positive swordsmanship, mana perception, eidetic memory, steel will. Neutral, negative, terminal illness, sickness. After reading it, Yukon was so happy he cried. There's even a status window. Before he could get too excited, the system continued its introduction. Stats, strength 2, mana 9, luck 7, willpower 10, magic 25. Yukon was quite stunned. Huh? Why are my stats like this? Strength is only 2, and on top of that, my negative trait is neutral, dark attribute, negative, terminal illness, pain, frailty, frequent sickness, cold limbs. What a cruel twist of fate. Yukon suddenly realized, don't tell me. Is this the character I customized earlier? I have a time limit in real life, terminally ill with 1 year left depending on my unique condition, and I still have a time limit here? He asked himself in a daze. I don't remember exactly why I did that. But thinking back, I had a vague idea. I wanted this character to be like me. A character with no one to rely on, who was destined to die. The remaining time would be the same as mine. Of course, I didn't know it would turn into such a disaster. Then, a system notification appeared. You have 1 unread letter in your mailbox. Would you like to read it? As soon as Yu-chan saw it, he didn't hesitate to click open, even while asking aloud, an unread letter? A message appeared in the letter. Hello, Yu-chan. No. From now on, I'll call you Knox. Just reading the first line sent a chill down Yu-chan's spine. It knows my name. Yu-chan. My old name, given to me by my parents. I don't even know if they're still alive. He fell silent again, his mind filled with countless questions. The one who brought me to this world. Could it know something about the past that I've forgotten? The messages continued. You won't remember me, but I need to tell you this. It's been a long time. Yu-chan read, a mix of surprise and confusion. What was this? Every word made him break out in a cold sweat. You have done very well for the past 2 years. You have the right to return to this place. Welcome back, Yu-chan. I'm frozen in place, completely unable to understand. I'm back? The questioning thoughts echoed endlessly in my head. You said I'm no longer in my old world. Nock frowned with worry. So, is this place my reality now? He clenched his fists, which were drenched in sweat. This is just absurd! The system message continued to appear. I cannot tell you much about my identity yet, but I hope that I can help you. Reading that, Knox was once again lost in thought. Help? The mysterious person didn't give him time to collect himself, offering advice instead. Join the Elydian Academy, then build up your strength and try to follow the main storyline as closely as possible. The whole truth will reveal itself naturally. With that, the system shut off, leaving a bewildered Knox behind. Wait, is that it? Knox clutched his head in frustration. Okay, I need to sort out my thoughts. Looking at himself in the mirror, Yu-chan in the body of Knox, he made a decision. First things first. I've been reincarnated as the final boss of this game, in Lunatic. However, he was still hesitant. But I have to follow the main storyline? No matter how you look at it, that means I'm still going to die in the end. He remembered the message from before. Yu-chan, no. I suppose I should call you Knox now. He had to accept it. Anyway, even if In Lunatic has really become my reality. Knox broke into a sweat as he thought, it doesn't mean I'm giving up. I'm on getting my memories back. No matter what it takes, I'll follow the main storyline, and using my lost memories, I'll find out why I'm in this world. His eyes flashed with unprecedented determination. And I will survive for that purpose. I'm determined to become a true villain. Knox smirked, looking a bit sinister. When I think about it, it's not that different from my old life. That memory of Yu-chan's resurfaced. 2 years ago, before I lost my memories, I had a terminal illness. Every moment was another step toward death's door, and I spent my whole life living in fear of death. The only thing that's changed is this system. Now Knox stood all alone in the vast room of the world he knew best. He then spoke up, asking the system, "What's today's date?" It immediately replied, February 4th, 1812. Seeing this, Knox let out a sigh. That means I don't have much time left. He seemed to have regained his spirits, a bright smile on his face. Well then, shall we begin my 28th playthrough with some enthusiasm? With that, Nox strode over to open the door. But as soon as he touched the handle, his hand was stopped by something, flashing red for a moment. He stood there, stunned. Huh? The system panel appeared with an explanation. Debuff activated. Due to the effects of your chronic illness, you have contracted level 1 wrist tendinitis. Please rest and recover fully. This made him curse under his breath. What the hell? The clear blue sky cast rays of sunlight into the room as he cradled his aching hand, walking around the house. He thought to himself, what the heck is wrong with this body? Am I this fragile? As he was complaining, a girl in a maid's uniform bumped into him, and a stack of porcelain plates fell and shattered. The girl appeared, looking weak and pitiful. Blue mana flowers swirled around her. A second later, she suddenly realized who he was and shrieked, startling all the staff here. The building felt like it was about to collapse. Young Master Nox! Meanwhile, Nox was still reeling from the pain in his more than useless hand. Ow, that hurts so much! Then he slowly glanced at the girl and recognized her face. Brown hair and light orange eyes. Is this Rona? Rona was panicking. She bowed her head repeatedly, pleading, I'm sorry, please forgive me for my transgression. For injuring you, my lord? Searching his memory, Nox recalled, because she's just a side character, the only thing I can remember is that she talks bad about Nox behind his back. That's all I remember, asterisk. And yet, looking at her weak, fragile face, like a little puppy's, Nox couldn't help but wonder, a girl this innocent talked bad about Nox behind his back? Even if he is a villain, he thought, then smiled a somewhat fake smile and stepped closer to Rona. I will forgive you. This time. At that moment, Nox looked like a textbook villain. He uttered reassuring words, but his face was terrifying enough to scare the life out of someone. If you make another mistake... Before Nox could finish his warning, Rona was so scared she hurriedly accepted her fault. Yes, sir. It won't happen again, sir. The surrounding atmosphere made him suspicious. Why is it so quiet? He moved closer to the other three maids. They all looked terrified, their faces as if they'd just seen a ghost, not daring to utter a sound. Just then, Nox remembered. Ah, I forgot. I'm a complete madman. Real Nox, what kind of life did you live? As he was cursing himself internally, Rona spoke up, interrupting his thoughts. Anyway, young master, where are you going so early? Nox immediately looked at her and replied, The training room. The moment the words left his lips, everyone's jaws dropped, frozen solid. Before the statues could recover, Nox dropped another bombshell. Oh, and Rona, you're coming with me. These words made Rona feel like the world was about to end. Don't tell me. He's planning to beat me, isn't he? The sky was still clear, and the sun shone down on the magnificent castle. Nox was heading to the training grounds with Rona. She glanced at him apprehensively, but Nox didn't spare her a single thought. He just kept walking, lost in thought. First things first, I need to survive. Recalling the moment of his actual death, his resolve hardened. After experiencing death once, I'm certain now. Back then, his eyes were lifeless as tears streamed down his face. I don't want to die. Back in the present, Nox gazed outside, thinking, in order to survive, I need to adapt to this new situation as quickly as possible. Then Nox spoke his thoughts aloud. But that doesn't mean I can't change things. His cryptic words made Rona, who was walking beside him, completely confused. Ignoring her, Nox was once again lost in his thoughts. As someone who's played this game 27 times, I grasp most of this game's hidden aspects. Nox uttered 4 words. Status window. Inner Lunatic, with its plot centered on a showdown between angels and demons across the Empire, had a massive fanbase around the world. What made Inner Lunatic special was its character customization, allowing for a variety of playstyles, while low-ranking attributes like normal or talented could be assigned multiple times. In most cases, the genius attribute could only be assigned once. Using a genius attribute allowed you to reach the pinnacle much more quickly, and yet I possess 2 of them. This game has a concept called an attribute penalty for assigning an attribute beyond your personal limit. Genius of Mana Perception. Please select a genius attribute, swordsmanship and combat, a neutral attribute, a disadvantageous attribute, incurable disease. By exploiting the system, it's entirely possible to assign 2 genius attributes. Genius of Swordsmanship and Combat grants you sword skills, allowing a player to reach the peak of swordsmanship. On the other hand, Genius of Mana Perception heightens your sensitivity to magic, allowing for more efficient spellcasting. Thinking about it, Nock couldn't help but feel a triumphant sense of satisfaction. Those things have a lot of benefits. The main character has a skill called Mind's Eye, which allows you to see other players' status windows, and Master Actor, which lets you act with any expression in any situation. That seems very useful in my circumstances. Steel Will can be used during combat, allowing a player to maintain a steadfast spirit. It gives me a cold exterior. The only major problem is the incurable disease disadvantage, which is the worst. But incurable disease, frailty curse, chronic illness, cold limbs, demonic possession. His face was covered in sweat, but he still forced an awkward smile. I'm like a walking hospital, aren't I? For someone with cold limbs, unless they have a warming skill. Setting foot in a cold region is practically impossible. And with chronic illness, I'll collapse at least once per chapter. He kept scratching his head and ruffling his hair. He looked no different from some lunatic who'd just escaped an asylum, causing Rona to constantly glance over at him. Well, I guess there's no other choice. Let's take this one step at a time. Before long, Nock was standing in front of the training hall. Rona, at his side, couldn't help but feel skeptical. We're right in front of the training hall. Does he really intend to go in? Suddenly, something shifted her skepticism to surprise. It was Nock's serious and determined expression. He stared intently ahead, while behind him, Rona was staring intently at his face. Without another moment's hesitation, Nock threw the door wide open and stepped inside. His thoughts raced. First, the frailty curse. The player is afflicted with this curse from birth. Their growth rate is halved, and their resistance to enemy debuffs is also halved. I have to get rid of the frailty curse first. The wooden sword was gradually raised, Nock's hand already slick with sweat. No matter how long I think about it, I can only come to one conclusion. It looks cool holding it, though, but he looked like a fish on a cutting board, fumbling with his hands and feet. Nock's face was pale as he gasped for breath. I'm so screwed. It was like the introduction of a novel, and just like that, the wooden sword fell from his hand with a spin. Nock collapsed, lying exhausted on the floor. Instead of kicking back, eating snacks, and watching Netflix, Nock was now frozen, facing a harsh reality. After careful consideration, this is the conclusion I've reached. Someone who can't even swing a sword 10 times. I didn't think the frailty curse would be this debilitating. The training hall itself was vast. Nock sat up and looked around, unable to help but be impressed. As expected, so many fine weapons. Another introduction began to unfold. It's because the foundation of the Wren Harper family originates from the sword. When it comes to the Wren Harper family, there's no shortage of praise for them. Their most famous title is probably the Noble Family of the Sword and Shadow. The reason they're called that is because of their technique of infusing dark mana into their blades to deal with their enemies. It's all thanks to the commander's sword known as the Tyrant's Blade of Darkness. It is passed down to the heads of the family, and that process has continued for generations. Thinking about that, Nock suddenly realized he was overthinking things. What does any of that have to do with me, aside from swordsmanship? There are plenty of other benefits to being part of a noble family. Then he just sat there casually, admiring the rare items and completely forgetting his mission to train. The most important thing is money. Money. Nobody doesn't love money, and Nock was no different. Even on his deathbed, he'd willingly sell his soul to capitalism. Money is the best. He imagined a scene of gold coins raining down from the sky. Nock's imagination ran wild. The Wren Harper family is one of the greatest noble houses in the story. Of course, they're incredibly rich. Nock just sat there, his eyes gazing at the blue sky. So rich that even their useless son has enough money to do nothing for his entire life. He then thought about the father of the body he was in. It's probably because Nock's father doesn't really care whether Nock spends his money wisely or not. Nock wasn't that type of character from the start anyway. The youngest son of a noble family? After thinking for a while, Nock slowly got up. Anyway, his character archetype is obvious. I'll definitely spend all the money I have. The moment he stood up, his legs began to shake uncontrollably. Nock felt completely helpless, remembering Rona, until Rona brings back the items I asked for. I can't even run. Rewind to a few minutes ago, when Rona was still here with Nock. She pushed a table with towels and water over. Rona respectfully said, "The wooden sword, towels, and warm water are here, young master." At that moment, she still couldn't believe a good-for-nothing like Nock was actually trying to do something. She wondered, is he really going to train? Suddenly, Nock's words made Rona freeze in her tracks. There's no one else around, right? Come here. Rona completely lost it. Just one sentence conjured up several scenarios in her mind. Rona instantly fell into an abyss of despair, crying out, "Why? Are you going to hit me?" Being a perfectly calm and good person, suddenly being labeled as some kind of abuser made Nock want to steam with anger. What are you talking about? Then he reached out, pulled Rona's hand, and said, "Bring your ear closer." One person spoke, the other listened dazedly, not knowing if she understood anything at all. Huh? And then, Rona screamed at the top of her lungs, revealing the big secret and wasting his effort to whisper. What? You want to use all that money? Rona frantically began to question his idea. Telling me it's all worth... Before she could finish, Nock immediately cut her off, making her instantly as obedient as a puppy. Shut your mouth and go find those things. Yes, sir. Please don't shout at me. A chill running down her spine, Rona left with a fearful look, sighing to herself. He's changed. A while later, back in the empty training room, the wooden sword still lay untouched on the floor. Nock was now walking around the room, examining the various weapons. I don't know how fast Rona is, but I need to have those things here by tomorrow. Thinking this, he poured himself a cup of water. Nock raised the cup, about to drink, but his mind kept racing. Is this the tea Rona brought? I still have to break this curse and deal with my weakness. I never thought the curse would be this bad. Before he could even take a sip, Nock was scared out of his wits by an uninvited guest. Hello, young Master Nock. The person who made him jump was the head butler, whose character history was now introduced. As an asset manager for the family and an advisor to its head, Chanok, he was not someone I could easily deal with. That was Rothwell. At this thought, the hand holding his cup began to tremble violently. Nock's face grew more serious and worried than ever before. This is a challenge I have to face. As Nock put the cup down, he speculated, he almost never pays any attention to me. Has he noticed something strange? The moment the bottom of the cup touched the table, an idea struck Nock. I have a way to handle this. He immediately activated his master actor skill. What are you doing here when you should be serving me? Mr. Rothwell got straight to the point, as instructed by the head of the family. I came to inform you of something. What is it? Rothwell's face was stern as he instructed, You are required to attend dinner tonight. This made Nock tremble with anger. He gave an awkward laugh, cursing inwardly. I don't even know much about this family yet. Are you kidding me? My father, he wants me to have dinner with him? Then, under the butler's gaze, Nock flatly refused. Tell my father I can't make it tonight. Rothwell sighed helplessly, thinking, I wonder why the master insists on the young master joining dinner tonight. Then he clarified the situation. The daughter of the Steeliner family has come to visit. It seems she is here to train as a knight. If you do not attend, young master, he warned urgently, I'm afraid the head of the family will be furious. Hearing this, Nock could only reluctantly agree. I understand. This statement also surprised Rothwell, who showed clear suspicion. Being a straightforward man, he didn't hesitate to ask, Young master, you seem a bit strange today. Yu-chan, in Nock's body, couldn't help but feel flustered. What are you trying to say? Without asking further, Rothwell voiced what was on his mind. You've never held a sword before. I noticed you came to the training room on your own to practice, but I still don't understand why. May I ask the reason why? Nock answered seriously. Allow me to make this clear. It must be thanks to my god-tier acting skills. Nock warned him in a tone that couldn't be more befitting of a master. As a butler, do not overstep your bounds with your master. A dark glint flashed in his eyes. Whatever I do, for whatever purpose, is none of your business. I am the one who decides that. After hearing this, Butler Rothwell was struck speechless, unable to retort. He then bowed his head earnestly. Please forgive me, young master. Ignoring him, Nock walked straight off in another direction without looking back. But Butler Rothwell's suspicion remained. There's something about him that's changed. I need to report this to the master. The sky was as blue as ever, but Nock's hands were sweating bullets. He had just acted so cold and firm, but now he was terrified, panting heavily. That was so intense. I never thought a situation like this would happen. Then Nock let out a long sigh. I wonder what would have happened if I'd slipped up even a little. He's not following me, is he? Forget it. He remembered that Butler Rothwell had mentioned the daughter of the Steeliner family, which made him a little curious. She was a good-looking girl with red hair. What is she doing here? In a flash, the sky turned to night. Stars and the moon veiled the heavens. Below stood a magnificent castle, and inside, the other children of the noble class were relentlessly mocking him at the dinner table. Hey, look, the idiot actually showed up. I don't think I'll be able to stomach this meal. But it didn't matter, because Nock was a relaxed young man. He sat still, even closing his eyes as if he were thoroughly enjoying himself. The twins, Haz and Alan, sitting opposite him, continued their incessant taunts. Don't tell me you still haven't gotten used to gatherings like this? Looks like that's exactly it. But I never thought you'd actually dare to show your face here. It's truly unbelievable. Then, seeing that he wasn't saying anything, these two clowns became even more outrageous. Did you hear he has a thing for one of the maids? I know. He's a truly hopeless case. Nock was speechless at these brats, thinking to himself that he hadn't even done anything wrong. Amidst the unpleasant atmosphere, the door opened once more, welcoming a new guest. It seemed everyone was now here. Hearing that familiar voice, Nock instinctively turned his head with a grim expression. It was none other than the father of the character Yukon, who was currently Theo von Renhofer. There was another person who caught his attention. The head of her family, Thalia's father. And her red hair gradually came into view. Hello, it's Thalia. She introduced herself with a radiant smile, brighter than ever. I am Thalia von Steiner. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Theo and Thalia standing together looked like a colossal titan next to a short girl. He immediately added to the introduction. Steiner's daughter will be receiving night training, and she will be staying here with us for a while. Seeing the beautiful girl, the twin brothers' eyes lit up. Night training. Nock was also standing opposite Thalia. Theo was still instructing his troublesome sons. Treat her as one of the family. Thalia kept her faint smile, looking straight ahead. Nock, in contrast to her, had a rather worried and dejected look on his face, thinking of the hero of Inner Lunatic and the future enemy of evil. Nock, she's the one who will plunge a sword into my chest later on. The night still enveloped the sky with only the castle lit up. Theo announced solemnly, Nock, I have summoned you here today for a reason. Instantly, Nock's expression visibly darkened. Thalia beside him looked bewildered, not understanding what was happening. A voice cut in, Now that everyone is here, let's have our meal. The table was laden with expensive, luxurious dishes. As Nock was about to eat a piece of cake, he noticed the mocking gazes of the twin brothers. After a moment, Alan turned to Theo. Father, I think it's time for you to make a decision on who will be joining the Elydian Academy and become a new talent for our family. Hearing this, Nock was momentarily speechless. He was simply overcome with surprise. At this, Theo appeared thoughtful, then answered seriously, I know, of course. The time had finally come. An introductory image of Elydian Academy appeared, the most crucial location in Inner Lunatic because there was a rumor within the game that students had to fight demons through various trials within the academy. Back with Nock, he looked heavy-hearted, thinking to himself, the one who gets accepted has to be me. Thinking about the students of that school, Nock accepted it in his mind. As long as it doesn't affect the game's storyline, I need to find allies for myself. Theo's voice once again cut through his thoughts. Although everyone already knows, only 3 members from each family are permitted to join the academy. The reason is to protect the academy from the power of the nobles. I have already reserved 2 admission slots for your 2 older brothers, so there is only 1 ticket left. Nock suddenly stood frozen in place, the images of his 2 older brothers appearing in his mind. And then, he gave a forced smile, looking towards Theo, and made a decision internally. Before I find my allies, securing that ticket is the best thing for me right now. Nock and Theo, father and son, faced each other. He looked straight at the boy and said, I will choose the remaining person to join the academy. Although he didn't say the name outright, Nock understood his father's meaning. So you mean you'll choose by having US brothers compete against each other, is that right? As the words left his mouth, Theo was momentarily surprised, marveling to himself that he hadn't expected Nock to speak up like this. But then he confirmed, that's right, I will set the date for the duel next month. I will decide who is chosen after witnessing your performance on the training grounds. As for the twin brothers, they continued to sneer and mock Nock. Hey brother, if you want to give up, you should do it right now. A weakling like you, who's never even held a sword, doesn't stand a chance against us. Under Thalia's curious gaze, Nox struggled, only managing to stammer out 2 words. That's... Then he picked up his glass of red wine, took a sip, and calmly retorted, "Isn't that something you should say only after you've won?" As if his nerve had been struck, Alan's face contorted with anger. "You think you can beat us?" Ignoring his shouting, Nock just calmly calculated in his head. "This duel will be my chance to get into the academy. I don't need to bother with their ridiculous prejudices." Thinking this, he looked into his glass of red wine and let out a single sound. "Heh!" Nock's face showed a bright confidence that had never been there before. "I will be the only one chosen to go to a Lydian academy." Theo was still sitting there, and witnessing this, he was a little surprised by his words and actions. As for the twin brothers, they were now trembling with rage from Nock's provocation. One other person was here, Thalia. She smiled audibly, amused. "Well now," her eyes turned towards him in admiration. "The youngest son of the von Renhaffers is quite confident, isn't he?" Seeing this, Nock appeared calm and cool on the outside, but deep down, he was terrified, sweating bullets. Beneath the starry night sky, a helpless thought echoed in Nock's mind. "I think I've caught the attention of someone I shouldn't have messed with." A moment later, through the frame of a window, a room was still lit. Inside, on a desk, lay a stack of papers containing some sort of information. Lord Theo and Butler Roshwell were discussing something. Lord Theo received the stack of papers and spoke. "According to your report, it's clear that his behavior has changed abruptly," Butler Rossell acknowledged respectfully. "Yes, that's correct." For a moment, Theo was lost in confusion. "I can't believe he's changed until I see it with my own eyes. How did that kid manage to change his personality like that?" But then he seemed to be overthinking it, imagining the form of a death god. Don't tell me he's been possessed by a demon. In any case, he felt quite curious. Then Theo spoke, ending the conversation. "All right, that's all for today, Rotwell." In a flash, the next day arrived, sunlight filtering into the garden. Along with it came a reminding voice. "Keep concentrating, Nock!" In the vast 1,000-square-meter courtyard, the sound of constant bustling chatter could be heard. "Look at him!" It turned out Nock was the reason for everyone's surprise. He was running so hard that he was drenched in sweat. "The young master is training again." The maids, who seemed to be seeing Nock so determined for the first time, couldn't stop whispering among themselves. "Oh my God, I heard there's a competition next month." "A competition? But why?" Then they looked back at Nock, who was panting heavily just from running around the courtyard. "He's just running around like that." However, they didn't know that Nock had heard everything they said. How can I hear them whispering so clearly? I don't remember having any passive skill like this. But he didn't pay it much mind. Instantly, Nock returned to his determined training mindset. But after running for so long, the system displayed a message that made his heart sink. Stamina increased by 0.1. Only 0.1? Even so, Nock had no choice but to accept it. Why am I running around the courtyard like this? It's because my biggest weakness is my stamina. The condition to activate Sword Genius is to reach level 4 in physique. Then he remembered his admirable stamina. Nock's admirable stamina, and tears of self-pity welled up in his eyes. Unless my stamina becomes like his, it will activate immediately. The skill is Sword Genius, a God-given sense, perceptive eyes, eidetic memory, nerves of steel, master actor. But I'm suffering from the fatigue of the curse. At this point, he no longer had the strength to run. It looked like he could barely even stand and breathe. Yet Nock wasn't discouraged. He smirked, silently cheering himself on. I need to raise my stamina by another 1.9 in 1 month. Curse of weakness. A curse that reduces your endurance by half. I'm nearly exhausted from running for my life like this. But as you can all see, I've only gained 0.1. Looking at the system panel, Nock sighed helplessly. My terminal illness trait has already cut my stamina in half. As a result, I have to train 4 times harder than others, no matter how hard I try. Stamina, 15, mana, 30. Once afflicted with the terminal illness trait, my stamina points drop to only 15. I'll deal with this later. As he was lost in his disheartened thoughts, suddenly, some items were wheeled out. It was the maid Rona. Pushing a cart, she spoke respectfully. Young master, I've purchased the items you requested yesterday. Seeing this, his gloomy expression vanished. In its place, he smiled brightly, silently praising her. She's more resourceful than I thought. At least you're useful now. The items were, in order, three-headed serpent venom, divine spring water, a golem core, and a physique growth scroll. But what still troubled him was how to reach physique level 4. I won't let any problems occur, of course. As Nock thought this, he picked up the divine spring water and held it high. An expert using their past experience can do it. The scene changes to the training room. Rona's voice rang out. "Why do you need this stuff?" She seemed quite worried and confused, stammering her words. But all of those items are very difficult to use, or they're remedies that people usually avoid. They're very expensive, too. Isn't that scroll the only thing that's useful to you? What? Nock just replied with a cold, expressionless face. People avoid them because they don't know how to use them. Confused, Rona asked, "How to use them?" He didn't answer her, silently staring at the items. After a moment, Nock reached out, grabbed the vial of three-headed serpent venom, and without a hint of hesitation, downed it all in one go, even if the name sounds a bit dangerous. Beside him, Rona only managed to react after Nock had finished drinking. She turned pale with horror. "Young master, that poison—" Only a few seconds had passed, but it seemed the poison was already taking effect, causing Nock to grimace in pain, his face paling. "It's definitely poison." But his gaze suddenly shifted somewhere else. It turned out to be the system panel, which displayed a notification. "You are under the effect of three-headed serpent venom. Stamina temporarily increased by 1.5. A short timer began to count down. 9 minutes and 59 seconds. Nock's body became disoriented, but he managed to stay upright by grabbing onto the wall. Seeing that he was unwell, Rona shouted anxiously, "I'll go get the butler!" But his hand shot out to stop her. "Wait!" Even though he looked like he was about to collapse from the poison, Nock was unafraid. He picked up the golem core and, with a reluctant look, took a huge bite. This is actually pretty tasty. This scene made the already panicked Rona even more frantic. Her head was spinning. "Don't just eat the core like that," the system continued to announce. "You have consumed a golem core. You will slowly enter a state of petrification. A mysterious fragment has been revealed. The three-headed serpent's venom is reacting with the golem core." At the same time, Nock was silently satisfied. Good. The mysterious fragment worked. Nock now looked like a terminally ill CEO in his final stages, utterly devoid of life. But he stubbornly refused to give up. "I have to keep going. To explain a bit, the golem core can normally temporarily amplify the user's defensive capabilities. It's an item used to create combat golems, but when it reacts with the three-headed serpent's venom, a special effect is being activated. The three-headed serpent's venom is being diluted. The weakening curse has been removed." Remembering that, Nock immediately regained his spirits. That's right. The weakening curse has been lifted. As for Rona, she still had no idea what was happening. Thinking Nock was about to meet a tragic end, she was scared to tears. "Young master, you're going to die!" Rona kept asking if he was okay, but Nock paid no mind, lost in his own thoughts. There are still so many hidden things to discover. Suddenly, Rona's worried and fearful expression turned to embarrassment. Her eyes widened. It turned out that Nock's disheveled appearance, drenched in sweat, combined with emotion that looked like he was unbuttoning his shirt, had momentarily thrilled Rona, causing her to scream, "Young master!" Nock's eyes were vacant, as if he hadn't heard Rona's loud cry. "Young master!" But Nock's hand reached out only to grab a bottle of Ascension Bone Water. Regardless of what Rona was misunderstanding, he poured it directly onto his handsome face. At the same time, the system announced, "You have used Ascension Bone Water. The petrification effect of the golem core has disappeared. The Ascension Bone Water is reacting with the golem core." After he was done, he smiled faintly to himself, marveling, "What a strange feeling." Then, a hidden fragment was activated. The user will temporarily be granted the Blessed Growth characteristic. Looking at the system panel, Nock couldn't help but rejoice. Just as planned. The panel displayed the content. Positive characteristic. Blessed Growth. Until the stamina stat reaches 5, the user's growth rate will be doubled. Then, among the remaining items, was a scroll. Nock quickly reached out to grab it. One last thing. He tore it in half. His face finally relaxed. "You have used a rapid stamina growth scroll. Your stamina growth rate will be doubled." Afterwards, Nock stroked his chin thoughtfully. "I've broken the curse. And since blessed growth is limiting the debuff from the terminal illness trait, and I've used the scroll, my growth rate will be double that of a normal person. At that thought, he felt a new surge of determination. Does that mean I'll be able to increase my stamina stat faster? While he was calculating, Rona suddenly, who had been overly worried this whole time, lunged at him. She burst into panicked sobs. "Young master, are you okay?" Rona was flustered now that she saw he was fine. "You suddenly started taking off your clothes. I thought something was wrong with your head or something." Nock looked 30% helpless and 70% like an annoyed father. "You fool! Get me a towel, quickly!" Hearing him curse at her, Rona relaxed, though she was also a bit dazed. Even as he said it, Nock felt a little guilty. Now that the curse is lifted, maybe I should treat her a little better. He then forced a smile to reassure her. "Of course, I'm fine." But Rona couldn't help but fret. "Are you sure you're all right? Should I call the head butler? Shouldn't you be resting right now?" Nock smiled gently and replied, "It's fine." Rona asked again, "Then what are you going to do?" Nock looked at Rona with determination and uttered a single word, "Running." The sunlight of the blue sky shone down on the spacious garden. At this moment, Nock had resumed his training by jogging. But this time, Rona was also running behind him. Someone was observing the two of them running from a window. It appeared to be a girl. She clasped her hands and sighed in wonder. "What's with him?" It was Talia. She pouted and frowned, unable to understand Nock. How could someone as weak as him accept a duel with his two brothers? With her was her maid, Emma. Emma helplessly reminded Talia, "My lady, you shouldn't stare at the young master of the Renhover family like that." The maid's voice was stern as she corrected her. "It's impolite." However, Talia replied petulantly like a spoiled child who wanted to play. "I don't wanna." Talia looked displeased as she spoke her mind. "He's not even using a sword anymore. All he does is run." And even though the other knights of Renhover, 2 knights stood before Nock, but he paid them no mind. "Young master," Talia continued to complain, "Wolf offered to teach him, but he refused everything." The word dislike was written all over her face as she frowned and declared, "In 1 month, he'll be beaten to a pulp, and that will be the end of this." She said that, but then Thalia looked worried deep down. "Am I really so sure that's how things will turn out? So why do I even care? I can't stand this." Emma was still there. Seeing her lady's unusual behavior, she called out in alarm, "My lady!" Before the maid could advise her, Thalia shot up and strode forward, not forgetting to instruct Emma, "I'll be right back." Back to the Renhover estate. To the Renhover. The sun was still shining brightly. In the garden, the shadow of a young lady appeared, and it was undoubtedly our rebellious Thalia. She stood before Nock. Behind him, Rona was completely out of breath from running for so long. Then, with a radiant and friendly smile, the girl introduced herself. "I'm Talia." Nock didn't say a word, completely speechless. But inside, his mind was reeling in panic. "Why is she here looking for me?" Then Nock slowly stood up. "What do you want? I think I've heard your name before." Seeing his action and hearing his words, Thalia was in disbelief. What's with that cold attitude?" She then indulged in her own vanity, imagining things and getting shy about it. "He must be too stunned by my beauty." In reality, Nock was like a deer in the headlights. He had no idea what Thalia was thinking. She, meanwhile, was still lost in her delusion. That must be it. That's for sure. With that thought, Talia's cheeks flushed red as she gathered all her courage to blurt out her question. "I want to ask you, are you really sure you can beat your 2 brothers? Is that why you agreed?" Hearing this, Nox once again didn't answer, just standing there, frozen like a statue. Ignoring him, Talia continued to talk to herself, pacing around. "Do you really think you have a chance?" Rona, standing to the side, heard her voice the same thoughts she had and silently cheered in agreement. However, Talia seemed to be quite the narcissist. She confidently puffed out her chest and made him an offer. "A special one, just for you. If you ask, I will gladly help you." And yet, Nox bluntly threw cold water on her offer. He decisively turned his back and walked away. "No, I refuse. I'm not interested, so could you please leave?" Feeling as if she'd been looked down on, Talia was momentarily provoked and shouted, "How dare you? Is this how you behave when I offer to help?" Rona beside them was just as horrified. Her face turned pale with fear as she forced a stiff smile. "Young master, girls don't like it when you talk like that." But Talia's pride was also incredibly high. She wouldn't let him just get away with it. Talia spun around and stormed off, not forgetting to bump into him. Fine then, do it your way. What a dense and insensitive guy. Even though Nox had made the girl tremble with anger, he had no idea why. What? Rona, beside him, felt 30% helpless and 70% like a parent whose child understands nothing. At that moment, Nox finally frowned, a little worried. This is getting complicated. After that, Nox used Insight on Talia. The system immediately displayed a notification. Name, Talia von Steyler. Gender, female. Age, 14. Species, human. Main element, fire. Achievements. Stats, stamina, 6. Mana, 3. Luck, 5. Willpower, 7. Positive traits, gallant, knight admirer, straightforward. Talents, swordsmanship and close combat. Negative, inferiority complex, unstable state. Superiority complex. After reading it, Nox had to accept it, even if he didn't want to. No matter how you looked at it, her talents were truly top-notch. Looking at her status information, he mused to himself, in the guild, most men have a stamina stat of 4. Her stamina stat is amazing. Nox rubbed his chin, staring into the distant sky as he pondered something. He was still wary of Talia's abilities. Although she was nothing compared to the 3 sword saints of the continent or the potential of one of the 4 great mages, she at least had the potential to reach their level. The more he thought about it, the more he broke out in a cold sweat. She could kill a few demons with that fire attribute of hers. The fire attribute Talia uses will awaken into white flame, and it's used to incinerate the demonized Nox in the future. If I can make Talia my ally, and the plot will change too much, I need to find a way to stick to the original story while not having to meet the Grim Reaper. Nox sighed helplessly at the thought. From the very beginning, was it even possible to have a good relationship with the person who will kill me in the future? Time flew by. 1 month later, in a castle brightly lit by the glaring sun, Talia was striding inside, her eyes looking off in another direction. Her expression looked a little tired and sorrowful. Not long before, Talia was training, surrounded by a crowd praising her. Amazing! You learned so fast! As expected from the talent of the Steyler house. Those words were meant as compliments, but to her, they seemed to carry a heavy weight. The talent of the Steyler house, huh? As she was brooding, something caught Talia's attention, reminding her of when she had to kneel before a short-haired girl who had a face identical to hers. Talia stood up, disoriented. Her hand tightened on the sword at her hip, but her eyes became vacant and empty. I don't know if I can become a knight. A knight must not be blinded by greed. They must always be humble while sacrificing themselves for a noble cause. Above all, they must learn the ways of the sword to become a true knight. Talia let out a helpless sigh. Can he really defeat his brothers? At the ones who have trained for so many years just by doing those cardio exercises? Her disbelief, however, was short-lived. A moment later, it was the next day, with light just starting to creep into the room. Streaks of sunlight shone through the window bars. In the center, Nox and one of the twins faced each other, preparing for a duel. Watching were not only the servants and knights, but Talia as well. The butler and Mr. and Mrs. Theo sat up high, observing. Mr. Theo's first wife looked on with a serious expression, witnessing the match. Suddenly, Mr. Theo spoke, calling for the butler, Rothwell. At that moment, his entire being emanated an aura menacing enough to kill someone. What do you think the outcome of this duel will be? Rothwell, hesitant and uncertain, could only stammer, Fortunately, the referee below made an announcement, saving him. Attention, please! Both combatants have taken their wooden swords and are in their ready stances. The official match to decide who has the right to enroll in Eladin Academy. As the view closed in on Nox's determined face, the referee shouted, Let the match begin! The moment he finished, before Nox could even make a move, Alan seized the opportunity, leaping up and charging forward with his sword. The scene then shifted back up to Mr. Theo. He still hadn't let the butler, Rothwell, off the hook and questioned him again. What do you think now? This time, the butler answered without hesitation. Based on everything we've seen so far, young Master Alan should be the victor. After hearing this, Theo agreed. Yes, I think so too. Only Mrs. Theo beside him had a slightly uneasy and serious expression. Although Rothwell had said that, he still felt a bit awkward, silently wondering if the head of the house was predicting a different outcome. Looking at Nox, who was still standing motionless, Rothwell thought to himself, Even though young Master Nox has changed, I still don't think he can win. This is just too strange and impossible. He recalled the past, when he too had walked the path of a knight, fighting side by side with the master of the house. The sword is something that is sometimes complex. But at other times, it's the simplest thing in the world. The amount of time one spends training and contemplating it determines their level. The butler's eyes remained fixed on the scene below. There is only one thing that can reverse the situation and make a stronger person yield. In other words, a genius. A literal overwhelming talent. Rothwell broke into a sweat. I'm not so sure about my own speculation. Was young Master Nock really born with that kind of talent? Suddenly, Mr. Teo spoke up, interrupting Rossel's train of thought and startling him. I'm sure of it, Teo asserted. However, that doesn't mean his chances are zero. You never know. With the blood of this Rainhaver family running through his veins, a clever kid like him, could he have been born with the same incredible power as the three Sword Emperors? Cutting back to Nock, the system suddenly displayed a notification. Swordsmanship and martial arts genius trait not activated. This left him speechless for a moment. Nock was panting heavily, looking just as exhausted. He sighed to himself. Why don't I have any luck at all, even with such a high luck stat? Or maybe my luck stat was negative from the start, he recalled. First, let's talk about the results. In the end, I couldn't raise my stamina to 4. A trait is currently in effect. Stamina increases by 0.1. Stamina increases by 0.1. At that time, he was training by jogging. My stamina is at 3.8 now, right? Rona's footsteps could still be heard behind the young master. She was so tired from being forced to run that she was crying. Do I really have to run with you, sir? Despite that, Nock showed no pity for the fair maiden, replying bluntly, Of course, you're my maid. If you don't run with me, what else would you be doing? That's not what I mean. I mean, who's going to serve me then? Rona was utterly helpless. It seems your true intentions are showing, sir. Seeing this, he smiled, handed her the towel he'd just used to wipe his sweat, and let her off the hook for now. All right, I have one more job for you. Rona immediately looked unhappy, puffing out her cheeks and frowning reluctantly, but there was nothing she could do. Seeing this, Nock spoke up. Are you cursing me under your breath? As if he'd hit a sore spot, Rona immediately started sneezing repeatedly while frantically denying it. I'm not! She bit her tongue. Seeing her clumsy appearance, Nock couldn't help but laugh out loud. But then, a thought suddenly struck him. At this rate, her stamina must be pretty high, right? Should I use appraisal to check? Instantly, her information panel appeared. Stamina, 4.5. Mana, 3. Luck, 4. Control, 2. Charm, 16. Looking at the stamina box, which was higher than most people's, Nock was completely shocked. What the hell is this? 4.5? A maid is stronger than a normal man? What did the Rainhaver family make her do to get like this? Embarrassment turned to anger. Nock felt a little resentful that he was weaker than a maid. Another person with higher starting stats than me. Stats I haven't even reached after a month of diligent training. How unfair! Just then, Rona, standing behind him, saw that he was lost in thought and called out, Hey, it's getting late now. The competition is tomorrow. You should go get some rest, sir. Hearing that, Nock suddenly realized the day of the competition was just around the corner. There's no time left. Back in reality, Nock faced Alan, who called out to him. The arrogant guy still saw him as a nobody and jeered, Why don't you just withdraw? Alan wore a confident, triumphant expression. Even though you're the family's disgrace, you're still my little brother. I shouldn't hit you too hard, right? Isn't that right? But Nock wasn't backing down, immediately retorting, Judging by your face, you don't really want me to withdraw, do you? But Alan just smiled, not getting angry. He looked up and said, Oh, you figured it out? Truth is, I want to make a good impression on the young lady from the Steno family. You see, I'm sure you'll help me with that. Nock broke into a cold sweat, uncertain. I guess. I don't know if this is a good idea. Looking at the arrogant Alan, Nock was lost in his own thoughts again. Alan's strength is at 8. There's no way I can win using normal methods. As he thought that, the referee suddenly cut in. With admission to the Elydian Academy as the prize, the sword match between Nock von Rainhaver and Alan von Rainhaver will now begin. Both combatants must accept the outcome of the duel and may not question the result. As the match was about to erupt, Nock still didn't believe in himself. He was extremely anxious. I'm so worried. If I lose here, everything will be over. From regaining my memories to finding the person who sent me that letter. And even though I got a 1-year extension, my life will still come to an end. With that thought, Nock gripped the sword in his hand firmly. At the same time, the referee asked, "Is everyone ready? Then, begin!" With a loud shout, the arrogant Alan charged towards Nock, intending to win with a single blow. The sword swung down, but Nock swiftly dodged it. His feet were kicked out from under him with great force. Nock was put on the defensive, unable to do anything for a moment. He braced himself against the powerful force and was pushed back a long way. A look of determination flashed in Nock's eyes. Seeing that, Alan arrogantly praised him. "Nice block!" The fight raged on as the two clashed. As he fought, Nock thought, "The truth about this damn game. It's called inner lunatic." He was struggling. "It means I'll have to give up everything if I lose. But if I can win..." Thinking that, suddenly, the system announced, "Stamina increased by 0.1. Seeing this, Nock's eyes widened in utter surprise. Then his motivation returned, and he smiled as he spoke. "If I can win, I feel like everything will be within my grasp." Seeing this, Alan frowned unpleasantly and spat out a contemptuous remark. "Has the strong wind made you an idiot?" Then he continued his attack, not forgetting to shout, "I guess I need to hit you a few more times to bring you to your senses." Madame Teo, observing from above, was satisfied. She smiled, thinking, "I guess I was worrying for nothing." Even after hearing he'd changed, the match is still being dominated by Alan's power. She confirmed it in her heart. In the end, the child joining the Elydian Academy from the Renhaver family will be my son. Suddenly, 3 pitiful cries rang out, catching her attention. It was Mr. Teo, resting his chin on his hand in boredom. Just then, Mrs. Teo suddenly smiled knowingly. "This family will be the same one day." Over here, Mr. Teo was very disappointed. "I was looking forward to today because I heard he'd changed." In the end, is this all he can do? Butler Rochwell immediately chimed in. "Master, should I stop the match?" Looking at the back of the boy, who was panting heavily, he said, "If we let the competition continue, young Master Nock will need a lot of time to recover." Then he observed Alan, who was like a tireless monster, and Rochwell thought to himself, "Alan and Haz, they're talented, but not to the level of an unpolished gem. Compared to Garen, the eldest son, their skills are still lacking. The law of the Black Sword's power brought him everything, and made his enemies submit. It's an overwhelming power." Nock was still panting wearily. Seeing this, Mr. Teo sighed helplessly. Who did he even learn from? After that, Teo couldn't be bothered to watch anymore and was about to get up and leave. This competition is over. Just as he finished speaking, down below, Nock suddenly burst forth with swift sword strikes. The system continuously announced, "Stamina increased by 0.1. The genius of swordsmanship and martial arts attribute has been activated." Nock smiled dangerously. This time, it's my turn to be the main character. On the platform, Alan still didn't understand why he was laughing scornfully. "Are you crazy, Nock?" At the same time, the time reversal skill was activated. Mr. Teo's gaze, which was about to leave, suddenly turned to one of utter surprise. Nock stood still as the gears of time turned. Everyone was affected by it. Mr. Teo, who was about to leave, hadn't even managed to stand up yet. I've heard that phrase somewhere before. Alan, preparing to attack, was suddenly frozen solid, unable to move. Nock smiled, satisfied, regaining his usual confidence. Geniuses and commoners live their lives in different moments. This is time reversal. Everything seems to move slower. A skill that makes the perception of time slow down. Many times slower for the opponent. It's completely different from just moving faster myself, though it's quite difficult to use this skill to its full potential. As long as the genius of swordsmanship and martial arts attribute is active, Alan's sword will never be swung. Everything is decided. Nock seized this opportunity. With one hand, he sent his sword flying and regained the upper hand. Alan, having just escaped the time reversal, was momentarily surprised and a bit wary of him. Nock, now determined and confident, declared, "I will be the victor." Alan's sword fell to the arena floor, clanging continuously. His hand was also trembling from the impact. This made Alan furious, and he glared at Nock with daggers in his eyes. Meanwhile, Nock's hand was still gripping his sword tightly, preparing to swing it down. His face showed clear confidence. "This is going to be fun." Alan, a little intimidated, stammered, What are you?" He didn't answer, just dodged and thought to himself, even so, I shouldn't let my guard down. Then he thought about the time reversal. The skill only has a duration of 5 minutes. I have to end this within that time. Nock spoke seriously. I was going easy on you. Until now. He kept boasting to push Alan into a defensive position. But now I'm no longer interested enough in you to do that anymore, brother. And then Nock concluded with a triumphant smile on his lips. Let's end this quickly. Both of you, please come up here at the same time. The moment he finished speaking, both Alan and Haz were completely floored. What? Without paying his two brothers any mind, Nock turned to Mr. Teo to ask for permission. Father, please grant me the right to fight. Both of my brothers at the same time. Witnessing this scene, Teo was instantly wide-eyed and jaw-dropped. He never imagined his son had this kind of ability. Butler Rochwell was equally worried, glancing at Mr. Teo. Even Thalia, who had spoken so harshly the day before, was now panicked and tried to dissuade him. What the hell are you trying to do now? However, Mr. Teo was the complete opposite. He smiled with satisfaction, thinking, that temperament of his has changed, hasn't it? It seems my son still has secrets he's been keeping. It won't hurt to watch him a little longer. With that thought, he approved Nock's request. I will permit this 2-on-1 match. The lady beside him immediately shot up in worry, calling out loudly, Honey! But Teo ignored everyone and let the match proceed. Begin! Alan was grinding his teeth as he went to pick up his sword, the one that had just been knocked away. The two were instantly furious. How dare this bastard humiliate us like this? In front of father? But Nock still appeared confident, smiling with satisfaction. He swung his sword into a ready stance. The twin brothers are getting into position too. Immediately, the two of them charged forward to fight one man, moving as fast as the wind. Sword strikes flashed by one after another, but Nock nimbly blocked every single attack from the twin brothers. Alan, momentarily scared, shouted, Attack him deeper on the left! Haz had lost his cool by now. He angrily yelled back, Shut up, will you? In the middle of the fight, Nock suddenly noticed something. The system window showed that the proficiency of the lower ground sword technique had increased thanks to the special effect of Genius's timeline. He smiled, calculating things in his head. The proficiency increased, huh? All right. If that's the case, then I can see the path of the sword's blade now. The fiery 2-on-1 battle raged on. Suddenly, Nox moved backward, slamming hard into Alan's shoulder, making him wince in pain. The twin brothers momentarily froze in their tracks, her gaze fixed on Nox. Thalia, standing in the stands, couldn't take it anymore and called out. Meanwhile, he looked at them triumphantly, marveling to himself. How could the disgrace of the family have changed this much? That was what was clearly written on their faces. Then the two brothers turned to look at each other at the same time. Suddenly, Nox's voice cut in. Don't you dare let your guard down. He moved closer amidst their alarm. Right in the middle of a match like this. Before the two could even react, Nox swung his sword, creating streaks of wind. Just like that, he seized the opportunity and rushed in to attack. Nox calculated that there was still something more important and dangerous than this match. But still, this feeling of the sword's weight in my hand. He fought while marveling to himself, this is truly something to be savored. Watching this, everyone in the stands was utterly astonished, including Mr. Theo, who had just been about to leave. As the match ended, he still couldn't believe it. Down below, Alan was completely exhausted. No, it can't be. He lost his balance and immediately tumbled down. Both brothers had been overwhelmed by Nox. Damn it! At the same time, the system also announced that the Genius's timeline had completely expired. Luckily, the pair of brothers had fallen, leaving only Nox standing firm. So it's over, huh? With that thought, Nox let out a long sigh. Over on the side, seeing her two sons humiliated, Lady Theo worriedly called out their names. Down below, Nox was reminding the referee. Look over here, it's obvious who the winner is. Isn't it? The man immediately replied, Of course, sir. Afterwards, under the declaration that the winner was young Master Nox von Reinhover, Alan trembled with rage. Damn it, you bastard! His hand went limp for a moment, letting go of his sword. Just like that, it was tossed aside like trash, spinning around. On the other side, Mr. Theo was somewhat pleased, the corners of his mouth lifting into a slight smile. Seeing this, Nox felt as if a weight had been lifted, and his facial muscles relaxed. He then bowed his head respectfully and said, In that case, I will take my leave. After speaking, Nox walked straight towards the exit. Thalia was rushing down at that moment, but Nox's back was still slowly moving away. Thalia's eyes watched him intently as she silently vowed, I have to catch Nox and make him tell me what's going on. It was now late afternoon. In the garden of the magnificent castle, Nox could finally relax, panting heavily without stopping. He didn't know when his hand had gotten covered in plasma. Is this blood? His eyes showed a hint of surprise. It seems I went a little over the skill's time limit. A skill, Genius's Timeline, has a fatal weakness. If used beyond the specified time, the user themselves will suffer a detrimental backlash. The system appeared again. The player's lifespan has decreased by 2 days and 17 hours due to the skill's backlash. A portion of the user's health will be permanently taken away. And it's the worst kind of detrimental effect because it makes the user's body susceptible to illness. He looked at his blood-stained palm and sighed to himself, I already have a terminal illness. Then, Nox sighed again. Luckily, this backlash didn't happen in front of anyone. If someone had seen it, my Academy nomination would have been toast. Speak of the devil! A voice calling out to him rang out, catching Nox's attention. It was none other than Thalia, who had followed him. She asked worriedly, Are you hurt? Thalia's brows furrowed, clearly showing her concern. Were you injured in the last match? It seems Nox was in for more trouble. He broke into a cold sweat, cursing internally. Damn it! Looking at Thalia standing before him, Nox couldn't help but panic. Damn, she found out! And why did it have to be Thalia? I can't let her find out about these secrets. Then he spoke in a serious tone. You... But before he could finish, Thalia cut him off. You were able to defeat your brothers with that battered body. Nox's face immediately froze. Huh? At that moment, her cheeks were slightly red as she stammered, unable to speak clearly. I think... But Thalia, as shy as an 18-year-old girl, said, I misunderstood you. Memories flooded back. What she had seen over the past month was Nox never once holding a sword. On the first day, she only saw him swing a wooden sword clumsily. The truth is, how could someone like that possibly win? A few minutes earlier, as Thalia was running, her mind was in turmoil. It must be because he has talent. I need to ask him how he managed to awaken such a talent, and how he trained for it. She recalled Nox's image from before, but then, when all the matches were over, his demeanor when he was all alone. What was that? And that's when Thalia came across Nox's state just moments ago. Why is he in a state like this? Didn't he just overwhelm his brothers with his intellect and talent? Seeing his evasive eyes, Thalia silently concluded, Nox isn't useless. Those are just rumors. Her expression turned a little somber. He simply trained himself to the bone to be able to win at any cost. The silence was broken by Nox coughing a few times. Seeing this, Thalia immediately rushed over, anxiously asking, Are you all right? But the hand about to touch Nox was slapped away by him without a single shred of remorse. Nox, looking annoyed, uttered a harsh command, Don't touch me! And yet, inside, he was in utter turmoil. At the same time, I have to admit, because I've been stuck in this game for the past 2 years, my progress must look completely baffling to other people. Nox's face was drenched in sweat, pouring down like a flood. She was originally the character who was supposed to kill me. Suddenly, Thalia spoke in a small, timid voice, her face like a puppy that just made a mistake. I'm sorry. Who could possibly not feel their heart soften at a sight like this? Only Nox, utterly bewildered, could utter a single clueless word, Huh? Then Thalia began to voice her thoughts. I didn't think you were being so serious. About the sword. I heard you were born weak. That's why you only focused on physical training. I'm sorry for misunderstanding you. Her gaze shifted away, a little embarrassed. Pretending to be talentless, that probably wasn't your intention, right? Emma said that people can make that kind of mistake. Even so, Nox couldn't help but feel conflicted inside. How am I supposed to answer this? She's just as sincere as I remember from the game, even though I know she has the qualities of a knight. She's the daughter of a famous and prestigious ducal family. It must be difficult for her to admit to someone else that she was wrong. With that thought, he finally answered her. If that's what you think of me, then please don't tell anyone about the fact that I bled. Hearing him reply, Thalia immediately agreed with determination. Of course, I won't say a word. Afterwards, Nox glanced hesitantly towards Thalia. I guess I won't have to worry about anyone else finding out about this. With that thought, he walked past her, moving forward, not forgetting to add a reminder. You'd better keep your word. But Thalia remained standing there, watching his back as he walked away. Night fell, and darkness enveloped the castle. Inside, Teo was smiling in satisfaction. It seems my judgment was correct. Then he looked towards his butler, Rothwell. What do you think of Nox's talent, Rothwell? Rothwell answered honestly. At first I couldn't understand why the young master would allow himself to be beaten like that. But compared to other children his age, and even other young lords, I believe the young master is the best. Hearing the satisfying answer, Teo looked very pleased. I agree with you, and I don't know why, but I think he's still hiding some talent from us. Then Teo gave another order to Rothwell. Observe all of his actions. Do nothing but watch no matter what he does. The butler immediately complied. Yes, my lord. Lord Teo began to put on his gloves, deep in thought. I wonder if he... Teo looked at the palm of his hand, continuing to wonder, has enough talent to inherit the power of the supreme black sword, or not? With that thought, he clenched his fist and said with determination, I don't have much time left. A statement that surprised the butler. Rothwell, what you're doing is important. Hearing this, Rothwell bowed his head respectfully. I will do my best. The night sky was still dark. In another room, a light was on. The system panel had just made an announcement. You have completed the training quest. You have passed your first battle with a victory. Inside, Nox sat speechless, staring at the lines of information. This world has become reality. And yet the game's system still exists here. The status window is still here. Suddenly, something else appeared. You will receive a reward. You will receive 1 free stat point times 3. The moment Nox saw it, he was instantly thrilled. I've hit the jackpot! But then, he arched an eyebrow, confused. It took me a whole month just to raise my stamina by 2 points. You should have given this to me sooner, but the stat I really need to add to. With that thought, Nox immediately performed an action. The status window. His hand pressed the system panel. Not stamina, but luck. Luck. 10. Seeing this, he smiled in satisfaction. The reason for that is because it's not a stat you can raise through hard work. It's also because luck is the most valuable stat in Inner Lunatic. Nox's gaze then shifted to one side. Let's see what it's worth. The system announced, Welfare benefit. 27 wide area scans have been granted. You have received 1 random gacha ticket. You have received 1 skill confirmation ticket. Seeing this, Nox let out a sigh of relief. So the welfare system is still here. That's good. Then he gave a command. Let's do the gacha. As soon as he said the words, a giant gacha machine with a rather gloomy color scheme appeared in front of him. Nox could only stare at the thing, feeling helpless. It's so damn creepy seeing this in person. But he reached out and turned the knob anyway. As he did, Nox thought to himself, let's see. With maxed out luck, I think the probability of getting intermediate grade or higher is 95%. I think so. The eerie machine began to shake violently. Beginner and lower is white, intermediate is silver, advanced is gold, and the highest grade is rainbow. Nox watched, praying anxiously. Please, please let it be gold or higher. Just then the machine spat something out. A powerful golden light burst forth. Nox waited calmly, but he was thrilled that what he got was advanced grade. It's gold. Open it. The system also displayed a notification. Confirming grade. Congratulations, you have received an advanced trait. Nox was overjoyed, yet also a bit stunned, finding it hard to believe. Then, the system displayed the skill's information. Name, Supreme Tower. Grade, Advanced. Trait, Incompatible. Effect 1, reduces the combined stats of others by 20%. When your total stats are lower than theirs. After reading that, Nox got as excited as a child seeing delicious candy. This is a high-grade item. Unbelievable. And to think a skill for bulking up actually appeared. He glanced to the side. But I still have another reward, don't I? The question was posed to him. Do you wish to use the one-time skill confirmation ticket? Faced with the question, Nox couldn't stop thinking about what kind of skill he would get. It's all been decided already. One of the hidden pieces that can only be obtained through a member of the Reinharder family. I still have that skill. Theo will be gathering all the brothers at the stables soon. This will be the time to use it, Nox thought to himself. Isn't it almost time for him to return to the Reinharder stables? Whatever. Some time has passed since the graduation ceremony at Elden Academy ended. Ryan von Reinharder, the second son of the Reinharder family. To train to become a knight, he must be in the middle of some grand journey. Nox put his hands behind his head. I have to find the hidden piece and deal with Ryan. I have no time to rest at all. The only saving grace, he mused, is that I probably don't have to worry about Talia anymore, right? Thinking of Talia, she's not the type to break a promise. There's no reason for her to approach me again. In a flash, it was the next day. Light crept into the hall. Nock walked out, lost in 1,000 thoughts. That's what I was thinking last night. In front of him stood Talia, looking Nock straight in the eye with a serious expression. He lowered his head and questioned her. Didn't we already settle everything yesterday? What more do you want from me? Talia suddenly became hesitant and stammered. Huh? He grunted, as if he didn't understand her. Talia stood seriously before him, beat her chest, and made her demand. Tell me, how did you get so strong so quickly? Faced with that question, Nock could only remain silent, unable to say a word. Then he closed his eyes, walked past her, and gave a curt reply. Secretly watch me train for 1 month. Hearing this, Talia asked in surprise, Secretly? Unsatisfied with his answer, she chased after him. Wait, at least spar with me. No. At the very least, you could tell me how you train. At that moment, Nock was lost in his own thoughts. From what I remember, Talia is a character who has always yearned for her older sister's acknowledgement. With that thought, he turned and spoke clearly to her. You know, before asking me things like that, you should take a look at your own training methods. Nock's expression was serious. You should first consider what kind of talent you actually possess. After hearing this, Talia's face went blank as if she'd just had an epiphany. Meanwhile, Nock agonized internally. Ugh, I've never comforted anyone before. What should I say now? Phew. And so, he said one last thing to her. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. After that, Nock turned his back and walked away as if he were being chased by a ghost, but Talia still couldn't utter a single word in response. She furrowed her brows, looking so sad she was on the verge of tears. He's just leaving like that? The clear blue sky shone down on the castle. Nock, having just escaped a close call, couldn't help but wonder, she's not going to keep chasing me, is she? Ahead, the maids, knights, and butler Rothwell, and Theo were waiting for him. He was still lost in thought. There's no need to let her see me obtain the hidden piece, not when she could kill me. Theo observed him with a serious expression. Brilliant sunlight shone down on the area. This must be the Reinharter family stables. Sturdy horses were grazing on the grass. Famous for producing the best war horses on the continent, huh? Nock thought to himself. Butler Rothwell spoke respectfully to Theo. Greetings, Patriarch. You summoned me, my lord? Theo replied, you have all gathered. Looking at the 3 sons before him, Theo announced grimly, I am certain you all know why I have summoned you here. From this moment on, you will each choose the warhorse that will be your lifelong partner. Hearing this, Nock smiled to himself. I knew it. It's time. Horses. They are considered the most sacred animals on the continent, and especially so for the Reinharter family, whether one decides to become a mage or a knight. You choose a horse for yourself when you're young, so you can have a companion for your entire life's journey. The Elden Academy teaches you how to ride, and in the later parts of the game, many great wars break out. You'll have to raise a new foal from scratch if your horse happens to die. On top of that, teleportation magic is incredibly expensive. Thinking about it, he frowned in annoyance. What a strangely realistic disadvantage. Horses are an extremely important mode of transport. With that, Nock regained his confidence. That's why I have to choose the best warhorse for myself. While he was lost in thought, Theo suddenly spoke up, interrupting. Well then, the winner of the last match. Nock von Reinharter, you may choose first. As Nock was given this special treatment, the twin brothers, Alan and Haz, looked none too pleased. I will only give you one chance, Theo said. As for Nock, he just smiled and observed the horses. Step by step, he walked inside. Theo smiled gently, a rare sight, and wondered to himself, I wonder which horse my youngest son will choose. Nock stepped inside. Before him was a ranch hand bowing respectfully, but the horses also looked at him with curiosity. Seeing them, Nock thought to himself, they're all quite cute, aren't they? Good horses. But the one I'm looking for... Just as he finished that thought, his attention was suddenly drawn to a particular one. It was the horse whose shape and color were different from the rest. This is it. Nock walked step by step towards the gray-skinned horse that looked like it was on the verge of death. He smiled brightly at Theo and declared, I'll choose this one. For a moment, both twin brothers looked surprised. Teo, who had been smiling just moments before, now wore a grim expression. He then spread his arms and said to him, "I'll give you another chance." Nock didn't understand and just stood there bewildered, thinking, another chance? He glanced over at the horse he'd chosen, which was trembling uncontrollably, a clear sign of how terrible a decision they thought he had made. But his gaze remained firm. However, Nock then used clairvoyance. Loading target's status window. Basic information. Name, unselected. Gender, male. Class, high. Age, 0. Species, obsidian horse. Attribute, darkness. Its level is high, and depending on its growth, it can go up by more than one level. This means this horse can reach at least the highest level. Seeing this, Nock couldn't help but smile. On top of that, it's an obsidian type, an incredibly rare attribute in nature. And its name is based on the native gemstone. This is a rare horse. But then, he glanced hesitantly toward the displeased Teo. If the clan leader knew about this, he would have chosen this one long ago. Then, despite everything, Nock's triumphant expression returned. Truthfully, no one else was remotely interested because of its bad traits. Continuing with the negative information panel, determined death. Effect, determined death is active. Time remaining, 2 days, 16 hours, and 12 minutes. In a way, Nock gave a helpless, wry smile. This is even more troublesome than a terminal illness. A moment later, he spoke with determination. "I won't change my mind, I'll choose this horse." Nock fell silent again, sinking back into his thoughts. But with my knowledge, I can save it. Seeing how insistent he was, Teo couldn't understand. Why on earth he would make a choice like that? Is he seeing himself in that horse? In the end, the boy is just a sensitive and weak child. What a disappointment. With that thought, he offered one last piece of advice. "I hope you won't regret your choice." After saying that, he turned and walked away, leaving everyone stunned. Seeing this, Alan and Haz cried out in a worried panic, "Father!" Nock never expected things to turn out this way. Was my choice really that disappointing? A voice called from outside, "Young master, we will be watching. Please choose a horse." It was the butler, Roswell. He personally approached him. "Young master, please give your horse a name." Seeing him, Nock just replied, "Roswell, is that you?" Then he fell into thought. "All right, a name, huh?" A moment later, Nock officially named it Says. "I'll choose the name Says." He thought to himself, "The name I once used to clear the game inner lunatic. It's a very meaningful name to me." The sun had set, and dusk was gradually falling. Inside a brightly lit room, the short-lived horse Nock had chosen was lying on a soft bed, no less. It was even covered with a blanket like a king. At this moment, Nock was still thinking anxiously. "First, I can't let anyone know what I'm doing, so I brought it into my room. Now then." Nock suddenly fell silent, looking at it intently. The horse also stared back at him with its 2 round, glossy black eyes. Looking into its eyes, he mused, "Its eyes are so full of life." He smiled, satisfied. "Just like me, fighting for my own life. I guess you're the same. Struggling to extend your own life, even for just a little while." Then Nock looked in a certain direction and called out, "Rona, I know you're there, if you don't answer me this instant." Caught red-handed, Rona tripped and fell to the floor. I'm here! I'm here!" She scratched her head blankly. "How did you know I was there, sir?" Nock just crossed his arms and replied, "I saw you with my own 2 eyes. Why do you manage to fall every single time?" Then he pointed at the gray horse lying there. "Take care of it for me." Seeing this, Rona couldn't help but exclaim, "A horse? On a bed?" She pouted, looking displeased. "You mean I'm the one who has to clean all this up?" Despite that, Nock just smiled gently. "It's a sick horse, so please do your best." The horse on the bed was now sweating bullets. Rona finally relented with a sullen look. "All right, fine. I'll watch over him." Nock forced a smile, thinking to himself, "Well, this is going to be a bit of a pain. What happens next is going to be quite a shock. Can Rona really handle this?" Right now she was standing before the horse, who didn't look well at all, and she kept asking it questions as if it could understand. "Is your name Cass? Are you hungry?" 3 days passed in a flash. Then, on a beautiful day, a loud scream suddenly rang out. It was Rona, heartbrokenly hugging the gray horse and sobbing her eyes out. "Young Master Cass is dead." Nock, however, didn't seem particularly sad. He thought, "She's crying as if he actually died." recalling how Rona had genuinely cared for the gray horse day and night, just as she always did. I actually feel a bit sorry for her, he thought, looking at Rona calmly. I knew this would happen from the start. Cass was beyond saving. With that, Nock walked over to console Rona. That's enough crying. This is so annoying, I need to concentrate. Get up. However, Rona was still distraught. But young Master Cass, he cut her off, perfectly calm. Don't worry. Cass will return and stand by my side again. His words left Rona momentarily baffled. What, sir? Young Master, is your head feeling all right, sir? Nock could only give a helpless, forced smile and step back. Then, he pulled a scroll from his coat pocket. Seeing it, Rona timidly asked him, That scroll is... Nock opened the scroll and slammed it on the table. Instantly, a magical source appeared, and intense pink flames erupted violently. If I channel mana into this scroll... Rona's sad expression vanished, replaced by sheer astonishment at the scene. Just then, Nock grinned brightly and let out a soft puff of air. Rona snapped back to reality and worriedly tried to stop him. Young Master, did you just use mana? That's illegal! Ignoring her words, Nock was lost in his own thoughts. My mana control... Let's try again. He resolutely tried again, not forgetting to warn Rona. If you make a sound, I'll kill Cass again. If he dies, it'll be your fault. Only then did Rona clap both hands over her mouth and watch in silence. Nock thought to himself, I need to concentrate. The entire room was now glowing a brilliant reddish purple. Nock continued his calculations. Forget about whether or not I'm allowed to use mana. In this empire, I can't even awaken the attributes of a mana genius. People under the age of 15 are forbidden from using mana, with the exception of the royal family. Thanks to that law, the royal children are able to acquire magical skills. That's far better than the students who only learn about mana much later. A look of determination filled his eyes. Nock touched the magic circle with both hands. All I can do is pour my mana into it like a waterfall. The purple flames gradually intensified. I can feel a faint energy beneath my fingertips. His eyes suddenly lit up. This is mana. Nock grinned with satisfaction. Ha ha! How interesting. Use one-time skill confirmation ticket. Nock opened his hand, which held the purple flame. I must have been mistaken. The magic I'm about to use right now is... Just then, a system notification appeared. You have received the one-time skill, Necronomicon, Dark Magic. Dark. An image of a skinless, skeletal hand gripping a book appeared. Then the target was designated. Cass can also become an undead. Nock faced the gray horse. A system query appeared along with it. Do you wish to use the magic? The undead in Inner Lunatic have two main characteristics. First, they are creatures brought back from death via dark magic and dark mana. Second, just because they are brought back from the dead doesn't mean they lack a sense of self. Rather, they are reborn as a more powerful existence. Most importantly, Nock thought with determination, they will show unconditional loyalty to their master. The problem is there is only one family capable of turning corpses into undead. That is the notorious Dark family, the Markbad. The Rainhaver family is also known as a Dark family, but unlike the knightly Rainhavers, the Markbad are a family of dark mages who can control the undead. Players who have no connection to the Markbad family cannot use their skills, but that's not right. He smiled slyly. The one-time skill option I chose was the Necronomicon. As he thought that, suddenly from the magic circle, a pair of pitch-black hands shot up, startling Nock. More and more strange black things began to envelop Cass and Nock, surrounding Cass in countless numbers as if wanting to swallow him whole. Just then, Nock suddenly coughed up blood. Seeing this, Rona panicked and cried out, Young Master! Though he was at his limit, he still tried to reassure her. Shh, just a little more. The moment he finished speaking, Nock's face went blank. He had pushed himself too far and coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood. Powerless, he slammed his hand down on the magic circle. My mana, it's completely drained. Damn it! But then his eyes suddenly lit up as if he'd found a glimmer of hope. It turned out the mana had been slowly gathering inside. Cass reared up, its mouth wide open. Then a system notification appeared. Skill successfully activated. Nock stared at the scene in utter amazement. Under the stream of purple mana, the player's pet was reborn as an undead spirit. Its previously black eyes were gone, replaced by a blinding white. Seeing this, Nock finally reacted, joyfully exclaiming, It worked! Meanwhile, Rona was so worried she was on the verge of tears. "Young master." But thankfully, Nock was unharmed. He pushed himself up with his hands, slowly getting to his feet, and as soon as he stood up, Nock wiped the blood from his mouth. Then, the newly revived Cass, looking much more badass, approached him as an information panel slowly materialized. Positive attributes: steel stamina, extraordinary warhorse, courageous. Neutral, unwavering devotion. Basic information: name, Cass, gender, male, rank, high, age, unknown. Species: Blackstone, undead, steed. Primary element: dark. Trait removal: the fated death characteristic will be removed. For a limited period of 1 year, the pet's growth rate will increase by 1.5 times. As an undead, it can be summoned and dismissed at will, depending on the player's mana. Nock gently stroked Cass's head and declared, "From now on, I am your master." He was just thinking about something when, suddenly, something made both Nock and Cass jump in surprise. It was Rona, who, overjoyed, ran and threw her arms around both of them. Nock, nearly suffocated by the hug, managed to gasp, "Rona, what do you think you're doing?" She was crying her eyes out, tears of happiness. Then Rona started rambling non-stop, much to Nock's helpless dismay. "Young master, I thought something awful had happened to you. How could you use your mana so recklessly? And I thought something had happened to Cass too." But Cass just scowled and turned its head away. Seeing this, Rona became indignant. "Cass, do you have any idea how worried I was about you? Give me back my carrots!" Watching the two of them bicker playfully, Nock felt much more relaxed. He smiled, completely content. "All right, I guess it's time for the next photo fragment." A few days later, in the dead of night, Nock ascended a flight of stairs. A horse in the stable neighed restlessly, but he kept walking, clad in a black cloak. In one hand, Nock carried a glittering object, and in the other, a map fragment. He observed the two items, silently calculating his next move. The path hasn't changed much from the game. He folded the map, sighing in relief. Nock looked ahead with determination. The second photo fragment of the Wren Harper family. It's an item I have to obtain. A key that can nullify negative stats, even a terminal illness. As he was thinking, suddenly a loud noise from within the forest grabbed his attention. Nock gripped the sword at his side, ready to strike, but there was nothing there. An uneasy expression appeared on his face. Am I just being paranoid? But there was a sign hanging in the middle of the forest. Nock's expression turned grim. This isn't a game anymore. This is reality. The sign he'd seen read, "Warning, Forest of Lost Children. Children are forbidden. Those who enter will become lost and perish." At that moment, Nock was worried. "I don't want to die a second time." A notification appeared. "You have entered the Forest of Lost Children. If you cannot complete the mission, you will forfeit your life here." Amidst the rustling wind and falling leaves, Nock's figure slowly walked on. The Forest of Lost Children, within the Rainhaver territory, is considered a forbidden zone. Because of the perpetual darkness and fog, no matter how skilled one is at finding their way, it is nearly impossible to find an exit. With a calm expression, Nock thought, so this is the meaning of its name. A place where anyone can become as lost child. However, his gaze shifted as he thought further. But in the game, the name had another meaning too. An image of a treasure chest flashed in his mind. Nock thought, it means, if an adult is strong enough to defeat the monsters here, they won't get any of the treasures. A shiver ran down Nock's spine as he thought about it. On top of that, the system drastically increases the monster difficulty for adults, doesn't it? I lost count of how many tries it took me to beat them. That's why this forest's difficulty rating is at least... Nock smiled and said aloud, about 2.5 stars. Of course, the maximum difficulty is 5 stars. He then thought, this really is the most difficult game. He stood there, stretching his arms and legs, muttering, to be honest, I struggled a lot to clear this place the last time I played, and all without knowing what kind of reward I'd get. But thinking about it now, it's the perfect item for someone with the terminal illness attribute, isn't it? With his thoughts settled, Nock stepped forward. All right, then. He immediately lit a torch, holding it high. As its light flared across the forest, a terrifying screech echoed through the trees. A gust of wind blew the torch flame to one side. Nock held it tightly, thinking to himself, the most important key to conquering the Forest of the Lost. Children. The smoke from the torch blended with the night, creating an ethereal scene. He stood there alone, observing, as a thought echoed in his mind. The direction of this mist. But Nox's gaze was incredibly determined. He was sure, and very confident. Or to be more precise, it's the opposite direction of the mist, isn't it? Nox closed his eyes tightly, thinking, before I move on. He suddenly realized something was off. He immediately gripped his sword tightly, then Nox turned around and called out, "How much longer are you going to hide? Why don't you show yourself?" The only response to his question was the silence of the forest. He sighed in annoyance. "Still planning on hiding, are you?" Nox drew his sword and slashed forcefully towards the bushes. Cutting back to an earlier scene, Talia spoke aloud. "I can't believe my beautiful appearance is this useless." She sat angrily, staring at her reflection in the mirror. "I just don't get it." Suddenly, a voice called out, "My lady." It was Emma, Talia's maid. She approached with a pleading look on her face.
"I'm begging you, my lady."
"Could you please stop following young Master Nox?" She continued. "If you keep this up, I'll get scolded too." Talia, sitting on a chair, patted her chest and replied, "It's fine, Emma. I guarantee you won't be fired by my family." Emma quickly replied, "No, that's not what I mean." The lamp Emma was holding brightly illuminated the room. Emma stood perfectly still. She thought to herself, if it weren't for Lady Chal, Miss Talia would be talented enough to be the successor. Emma wondered, I don't understand why she gets so worked up. Perhaps it's because she feels inferior to her sister. She slowly approached the room, thinking, my mistress has probably given up and gone to bed. But when she entered the room holding the lamp, there was no sign of Talia. Emma's face darkened in surprise. "My lady?" The lamp in Emma's hand trembled. She had a bad feeling. This is serious. "Don't tell me she went to find young Master Nox." Immediately she shouted, "Everyone wake up!" A chorus of confused voices rose up. "What's wrong?" Back in the forest where Nox was, it turned out the person following him was none other than Talia. She emerged from the bushes, blushing shyly with her hands on her head. Seeing her, he exclaimed in surprise, "Talia!" She stood up, smiled shyly, and said, "Hello?" Nox asked, "Why are you here?" She stammered in reply, no reason." Suddenly, Nox's eyes spotted something strange appearing. He immediately grabbed Talia and yelled, "Get back!" She also cried out in shock, "Nox!" From the dense bushes, a paw with sharp claws was slowly stepping out. A white, scaly tail swayed menacingly. A wolf. Its eyes were vicious, its mouth drooling with hunger. Nox recognized it, thinking to himself, a gray wolf. So this forest is gray wolf territory? Talia pressed against Nox in fear. Right now I only have a single dagger with me. The wolf circled them, as if assessing the situation. Its eyes never left them. It bared its teeth, then raised its head, opened its mouth wide, and howled. The howl echoed throughout the forest, illuminated by the moonlight in the sky. The cry grew louder and louder, but Nox's expression showed no sign of worry. In contrast to him, Talia was terrified. Suddenly, she gasped in astonishment as she saw Nox dash forward. He charged towards the gray wolf and lunged into battle with it. The torch fell to the ground. The wolf, hit by his attack, immediately rolled over, unconscious. Talia stood there watching, her eyes wide with amazement. Amazing! It's just one wolf, but I can't believe he dealt with it so easily. She looked towards Nox. He turned to face her, his handsome face splattered with the gray wolf's blood. He spoke. "I'll ask again. I thought my brothers were the ones tailing me. What are you doing here?" Talia was too embarrassed to know how to answer. She stammered with a nervous laugh, A night walk?" Of course, Nox didn't believe that. He picked up the torch and continued, "Don't mess with me, or I'll leave you here alone." Talia looked horrified and quickly grabbed his arm. He was a little surprised. Talia mustered all her courage and explained, I wasn't doing anything weird. I just saw that you suddenly became incredibly strong. So I wanted to become strong like you too. Then I looked out the window and saw you there. I was wondering where you were going, and it was just as I suspected. I knew you had some kind of special training method. That's why I followed you and entered this forest without thinking too much about it." A satisfied look appeared on Nox's face as he thought, now I'm sure of 3 things. He looked at Talia, thinking, Talia thinks very highly of me, and she doesn't hold any grudges against me. That's good. He was lost in thought as he looked at her. And she's a fearless kid who would follow someone into the night. Nox sighed. Since she's a key figure, I can't just leave her be. Then he spoke up. From now on, stick with me. As he prepared to leave, he added, Since it's come to this, let me make something clear. Nox said quietly, I'm not trying to help you. I'm just trying to handle this situation. So that my family doesn't end up in an awkward position. Talia replied with a guilty expression. I understand. I'm sorry. I was wrong to come here. Seeing her expression, Nox thought, she definitely won't dare to do anything this dangerous again. Suddenly, Talia stammered, Nox, thank you. He turned back slightly to look at her, while Talia shyly clutched her dress. He seemed a bit confused. Talia continued, I was also Suddenly, her expression changed. Ahead of them, an entire pack of gray wolves was slowly emerging towards them. She cried out in fear. He stood there, holding the torch high, watching the pack of wolves baring their fangs, drooling at the sight of them. The pack of gray wolves bared their fangs at the two of them. Talia, terrified, huddled against Nock, trembling. He handed her the torch and said, Stay back from me a bit. He added, You'll get in the way of my sword. With that said, he advanced towards the gray wolves. Nock thought to himself, even if there are a few unforeseen variables, but first, I need to focus. Nock looked at the wolves, calculating. This place is located before the main scenario, since this is an area from the opening part. He gripped his sword tightly. He pictured it, remembering that giant monster, so there won't be any boss monsters. But an elite monster will appear, one rank below a boss monster. It's the evolved form of the gray wolf that I just slashed earlier. A gray wolf elite. Nock was a little worried, but knowing who the enemy was in advance, the wolves immediately dashed toward Nock as he continued to think. It doesn't mean everything will go smoothly. He gripped his sword and charged out to fight the vicious gray wolves, thinking to himself as the wolf's gaze grew sharper and sharper. Nock's anxiety grew more and more. Before I knew it, I was cornered by them. He looked towards them. The wolves just kept leaping at him. With both hands on his sword, he watched them and thought, I'm going to repeat this again. At times like this, back when I was IU-chan and was still playing inner lunatic. With that thought, he gripped the sword firmly with both hands, raised it high, and swung down hard at the wolves, thinking, I'm just a weak, worthless piece of trash. After fighting off the wolves, he let out a weary sigh. Talia, standing to one side, holding the torch tightly, exclaimed in astonishment, Amazing! That was truly amazing! I'm sure he still hasn't shown his full strength, because when he fought with my brothers before, his swordsmanship was much more impressive. Looking at the gray wolves lying on the ground, she wondered, has he killed gray wolves before? But then she recalled Nock's words, Stay away from me a bit, and thought to herself, I think Nock still sees me as very weak. As Talia wore a sad expression, her eyes suddenly widened. A strong wind blew towards the two of them. Nock's face was strangely calm. He thought to himself, It's finally here. A black-clawed paw appeared, several times larger than the gray wolves from before. A pack of wolves 100 times more terrifying and vicious. Seeing them, he cried out, A gray wolf elite! Elsewhere, a servant's voice called out while holding a torch, Young master! Young lady! Bring more torches over here! There was a signpost that read, Forest of the Lost Children. If small children enter here, they may get lost and lose their lives, so do not enter no matter what. The servant looked down at the ground and spoke up. There are 2 small sets of footprints. It seems these are definitely the young masters and the young ladies. With a worried expression, he continued, I think the young master has entered the Forest of the Lost Children. He added, along with Lady Talia. Hearing this, Emma collapsed to the ground, stunned and shocked. No way, she cried out anxiously. What should we do now? We have to go in there right away. A bearded man spoke up. Don't be foolish, that's impossible. The one who spoke was Rothwell, the butler. Emma quickly cried out, What? But why? He didn't answer, but thought to himself, because this is a forest that not even the Wren Harper family has been able to conquer. The Forest of the Lost Children is the most forbidden place in the Rainforest family, even though the Rainforest family is known as the strongest dark family in the South. The truth is, there is still a forest that they have not been able to conquer. Or to put it simply, they don't have the ability to do so. Of course, the fact that only children who have not yet come of age can enter the forest, and that this forest can only be conquered by children, has not yet been made public. Butler Rothwell wondered to himself, why did the young master enter this forest? Looking at the footprints on the ground, he thought, I don't think he was lured in by a psychic-type monster. Looking at the footprints, I can see he moved very cautiously. The house was brightly lit, a stark contrast to the darkness outside. Butler Rothwell continued his thoughts, and there's no sign of anyone having passed through the strongest mana barrier in this area either. This means that young Master Nock entered the forest intentionally. He clasped his hands behind his back, looking into the deep forest. He clenched his fists, thinking, I was mistaken. He kept his gaze fixed forward, thinking, I can't keep denying it anymore. He is no longer the weak and timid young master of the past. Having thought it through, Butler Rothwell spoke up. There is only one way for those two to return. He said, and that is for the young master to use his intellect and find a way out of the forest. Hearing this, Emma became quite anxious, her face covered in sweat. The servants could only hold their torches, standing before that terrifying forest. Tears streamed down Emma's face as she clenched her fists, blaming herself. I was the one who let the young lady get lost and put her in danger. Back in the forest, Talia drew her dagger. Her eyes were filled with determination. A torch in one hand, a dagger in the other. Nock looked at her and remarked, even though she's scared, she's still maintaining her focus. Then he instructed her. Don't attack on your own, you could get hurt. Just stay out of this, he continued. Conserve your strength and try to run if you're attacked. That's how you can increase your chances of survival. But Talia's gaze remained resolute as she stared at the wolves ahead. Nock thought to himself, honestly, killing a Grey Wolf elite isn't that dangerous, because the difficulty is only 2.5 stars. He thought to himself, I just want Talia to be cautious and able to react to the threats around her. He glanced at her, praising her internally. Looks like she's taking it well. Besides, she's not strong enough for me to trust my back to her. Nock looked towards the wolf pack and said, now then, let's make an announcement. The words, Moment of the Genius has been activated, appeared as a powerful golden light erupted around Nock's body. He thought to himself, I'll use this skill and finish it in one blow. The wolf in front of him, with 3 scars over its left eye, just stared quietly at Nox. Both he and Talia were a bit stunned. The pack of wolves bared their teeth at their prey. Seeing this, Nox smiled. Don't tell me. It's this wolf. Immediately, a wolf leaped towards him. Nox gripped his sword and slashed at it, but the rest of the pack didn't charge. Nox wondered, why did they stop? A large wolf lay on the ground, its paws crossed, looking calm. Suddenly, others lunged out of nowhere, but Nox knocked them all away. The pack relentlessly surrounded him, howling loudly. Surprised, Nox turned to look. Just as it was about to attack him, Talia rushed in and slashed the wolf's back with her blade. He looked at her as she yelled, Be careful! She thought to herself from behind the bushes, Even though Nox told me to run if there was danger, I can't just do that. But Talia was gradually gathering more courage. Seeing this, he thought to himself, Talia, are you trying to help me? In an instant, she was perched on a tree branch. Talia held up a torch and asked worriedly, Nox, are you okay? She was extremely worried about him and asked, Are you hurt anywhere? Seeing her like that, Nox thought to himself, Talia, I can't believe she just helped me. Suddenly, his eyes shot wide open when he heard a noise. He immediately swung his sword, sending the wolves flying. He was now panting heavily. Then, Nox turned and answered her. I'm still okay. But in his head, he thought, now is not the time for stray thoughts. Hearing his voice, she relaxed a bit and said, What a relief. Nox thought, frustrated. I'm looking pathetic again. Suddenly, something caught his attention. He glanced down and thought, the skill's effect is being reflected back. Damn it! Just then, a wolf's paw stepped forward while he was lost in thought. But the fight wasn't over yet. The wolf's eyes were filled with furious, terrifying rage. Nox smirked and thought to himself, time to end this. The two were sizing each other up. The wolf stared at him. Right then, it began to circle Nox, its gaze filled with fury. Immediately, the wolf used its power and lunged at him. His eyes widened as he thought, It's coming! Nox scanned his surroundings to assess the situation. Then, he very quickly dodged the wolf. Suddenly, he was horrified. He stood frozen and thought, This beast, don't tell me. It was then that Nox realized, I was too slow. Immediately, the wolf attacked him with great force. Everything happened in a flash. Seeing it unfold, Talia screamed, Nox! Right after, the wolf darted away and vanished, covered in injuries, he thought. Damn it! Nox gritted his teeth and said, Is this really a 2.5-star difficulty? It's ridiculously strong. Then he stumbled into the forest. He pictured the wolf in his mind and thought, This gray wolf elite is so much smarter than in the game. Nox got into a fighting stance and told himself, I was too careless. He glanced around and thought, I should have realized as soon as I saw the way it controlled the other monsters. Who would have thought it even knew how to use the terrain to fight? Just then there was a rustle in the leaves. Instantly, the wolf attacked Nox from behind. Seeing this, he told himself, from now on I have to stay on the defensive first. Then he swung his sword, thinking, and then counterattack. The wolf immediately dodged his strike. Nox was breaking out in a cold sweat. The wolf glared at him, its face incredibly fierce. Then it let out a loud roar. Seeing this, Nox thought, it's waiting for the right moment, for a weakness to appear. He gripped his sword tightly. Right after I swing my sword wide. Then he gritted his teeth and yelled, Ha! Suddenly his face went blank as he thought, a counter skill. Then the wolf roared and charged straight at him. Hearing its roar, he thought, I didn't anticipate this. Because this is a game I've cleared countless times. Did I get too arrogant and thought I could do anything? He was stunned, thinking, what a stupid decision. Then Nox clenched his jaw, completely bewildered. Then he threw his sword straight into the wolf's eye. He thought, a dagger. He glanced towards Talia and continued thinking, if it can exploit my weakness, then in return, our side can exploit its weakness. As he looked at Talia, he thought, the one who can create that variable isn't me. Just then, Nox drew his blade. Then he yelled and stabbed the wolf with a critical blow. The wolf screamed in agony. It continued to howl as Nox's hand trembled violently, but Nox had killed the wolf. Just then, Talia yelled out his name, Nox! Suddenly, she seemed to see something. From a distance, more wolves started to approach. Then they all fled for their lives into the forest. Right then, Talia jumped down from the tree. She approached Nox and checked on him. Nox, are you okay? He replied, yeah, I'm okay. He wiped at a wound and said, I'm only alive thanks to... He suddenly stopped mid-sentence. He saw her tear-streaked face and thought to himself, was I just about to thank the enemy who's going to take my life in the future? She said, you don't have to worry. But then she saw the scratch left by the wolf. Talia started sobbing and said, I knew it, you were hurt before. Are you really okay? Hearing that, Nox replied, it's just a light scratch. But Talia was still worried and said, but still... He immediately told her, I'm fine. She finally stopped crying and said, well, I'm just glad you're not hurt anywhere else. Suddenly, a spider landed on her shoulder. Her face darkened. Hearing a sound, Nox turned his head and thought, what was that? Are there still monsters? She immediately threw her arms around him, terrified. Seeing her like this, he said, Thalia? The frightened Thalia stammered, There's a spider! Her eyes were wide with terror as she looked at it. The spider crawled closer and closer to her. Seeing this, she grew even more scared and clung tighter to Nox. He thought helplessly, how long is she going to keep clinging to me? He looked at her and smirked. She's afraid of spiders? Nox gently flicked the spider away and said, if something like a spider scares you this much, then how on earth did you follow me into this forest? Thalia stammered, But it's a spider. Aren't you afraid of it? Nox then teased her. Nope. You could definitely never become a knight. Hearing that, her face flushed red and she shouted, no! Just then he spoke up. Finally, you let go of me. Suddenly, Nox started coughing weakly. Seeing this, Thalia became very worried and asked him, are you all right? Seeing her like this, he thought with a sigh, honestly. Then he said, I told you not to worry. Seeing him say that, she was about to retort, but just then Nox thought to himself, Thalia, I guess she has her own worries too. Then he smiled and thought, I only survived thanks to her, even though I can't say it's because she suddenly screamed her head off. Thalia continued to ask about his condition. Are you really okay? Seeing her, he thought to himself, but thanks. Then Nox looked up and thought, now then. He thought to himself, we just need to get out of this forest. It was now late afternoon. At that moment, a maid fell to her knees, sobbing. I'm the one who killed the young lady. The butler observed the current situation and thought, what if they didn't make it? He looked up at the sky and continued his thought. Lady Thalia's disappearance will create a problem between our two families, especially since so many children from this area have gone missing in this forest. He hesitated, thinking, and there are also rumors spreading that the Wren Harper family is a family of incompetence. Suddenly the soldiers shouted, Lord Rothwell, look! The whole group cheered. The forest's mist has vanished. The butler was completely stunned and thought to himself, the forest of lost children has been conquered? Thalia's maid spoke up. I'm not sure, but that's what I was thinking, right? The fact that the mist is slowly disappearing. The butler agreed. You're right. Then he continued. It means this forest has been conquered. He then said, there's only one possibility we're thinking of that could have become a reality. Hearing that, the maid couldn't hold back her tears and said, that means young Master Nock. At that moment, the two of them were walking out. Seeing Nock emerge, everyone cheered loudly. The young master is here! Seeing him return, people began to whisper amongst themselves, I can't believe it. To think he was able to conquer this forest. It's incredible. He walked out as if nothing happened. The butler thought, I can't stop smiling. It's certain now. He looked at Nock and continued his thought. The hierarchy among the descendants of the Wren Harper family is about to see a major change. Nock looked around and asked everyone, why is everyone gathered here? Thalia's maid cried as she called out, my lady! Thalia's maid hugged her tightly and said happily, we were so worried about you. The butler looked at him and said slowly, everyone in the family was very worried about your disappearance. My lady. Hearing this, Nock said, unbelievable. The family was worried about a good-for-nothing like me? Our family's dark reputation is about to disappear. Just then, Thalia was comforting her maid. Emma, don't cry anymore. The maid said, my lady. Then she clung tightly to Thalia before standing up straight and telling her, I will now remind you of the 71 rules of House Steel Ranger. Please follow me. Seeing this, Thalia looked uncomfortable and said, Emma, come on, I'm sorry. Ah. Hearing that, Emma let out a loud laugh and said to Thalia, it's all right. How could I dare blame you? I'm just a lowly maid, after all. The head of the family himself will personally remind you of the rules. At this, Thalia began to beg, Emma. Seeing this, he thought, it seems that maid, and possesses incredible physical strength, too. Just then, Emma spoke up. Thank you, young Master Nock. Thank you so much for protecting Our Lady. Thalia, with tears in her eyes, said, although I had no intention of going with you. Hearing that, Nock replied, you solved the problem on your own, don't feel too disappointed. His words made her face flush red. The afternoon sun shone through the leaves of every tree. A large mansion came into view. Upon arriving home, Nock threw his bag and sword onto a chair. He said, well, that's that. He then grumbled, I can't believe it. Rothwell was actually waiting outside the forest with the knights. That was a real surprise. Was it because of Thalia? Then he smiled and thought, even so. He reached into his pocket, thinking he'd gotten it. He pulled out a ring. The system then appeared. You have obtained a new sacred relic. You have obtained the Dark Flame Ring equipment. The system then displayed its basic information. Name, Dark Flame Ring. Classification, Equipment. Grade, Low-Mid. Attribute, Darkness. Stamina +1. Mana +1. Conditions for use. Only those who use dark magic may wear this. Nox put the ring on, and a skull appeared. The system then displayed a special effect. When you defeat an opponent while wearing this equipment, you will steal a small portion of their life force and make it your own. The higher the level of the defeated opponent, the more life force you can steal. Nox looked at the ring and thought, the only sacred relic capable of stealing another's life force is the Dark Flame Ring, even though this is the only thing I have. He became very determined and thought, it doesn't mean I'll live that much longer. Nox looked at the ring, thinking to himself, a person's life can't be extended forever. He continued to think, and considering only a very small portion of life force is taken, it won't be easy to overcome this terminal illness. Nox, wearing the ring, thought to himself, as long as I can still struggle and grow. The system then appeared. You have equipped the Dark Flame Ring. He looked at the ring and thought something like that. This is still better than living a hopeless life on the brink of death. He thought, I can definitely feel my stamina and mana gradually increasing. Then Nox turned and called out, Rona, I know you're in there. Come out for a second. The door opened. Rona peeked her head out and stammered, Young master, can you see through things or something? He replied to her, Maybe I can. Hearing that, she shrieked, Eek! Does that mean you can see my naked body? Hearing that, Nox got angry and flicked her on the forehead. What the hell are you talking about? She held her head and yelled, Ow, that hurts. She then pouted and said, Why does it feel like getting flicked by you hurts even more now? Just then, Nox put his hand down and said to Rona, "Stop talking nonsense. Let's arm wrestle." Hearing that, Rona said, "Again?" Full of confidence, she said, "Young master, if I win again this time, you'll raise my salary, right?" Nox said, "I already told you I would. But if you lose..." Full of confidence, she said, Yeah, a 20% pay cut, right?" 3. Then the two started to arm wrestle. "All right, 1. Nox was very confident and counted 2, 3. As soon as he started, Nox had already won against Rona, but she couldn't believe it and stammered, What just happened?" "Something's not right," Rona retorted. "Don't you think cutting a maid's salary by 20% will damage the reputation of a son from a noble family?" Hearing that, Nox said, Well, I guess that's true." Then he continued, "But I'm famous for being the incompetent son of the Renhafer family. That's what the rumors say." Then he smiled and said, "So I've decided not to care about things like honor anymore." Rona started crying and begged, "I'm sorry." Suddenly, the system appeared, catching his attention. The effect of the chronic illness trait has been activated. You have received wrist sprain level 2. The system appeared again. You have received influenza level 1. Seeing this, he thought, "These damn disadvantageous traits." "Fine." Then he said to Rona, "Rona, I won't cut your pay. In exchange, bring me a towel and some ice." Hearing that, she asked, "Young master, you don't look so good." Hearing her, Nox thought to himself, "For now, I'll have to be satisfied with this ring. I need to get some rest." Suddenly, Nox's condition got worse, and he thought, "Is this a 1+1 deal this time?" I'm sure that was the name. The 2 remaining secret pieces, the rings of the Dark Flame ring in the mansion. It's been 6 months since I got them. He closed his eyes, deep in thought. Unfortunately, I still haven't had a chance to use them. A plaque hung on the wall. On it was written, "Novon Ranharfer has been disciplined." He opened one eye while the other remained closed. He opened his mouth and said something. As he opened the door, he muttered to himself, "It's not like I got into any trouble. I even wiped out the entire Lost Forest. I can't believe they punished me when they should have rewarded me. Life's a joke." Nox turned and asked Rona for her opinion. "Tell me, does that make any sense, Rona?" Hearing him, Rona replied, "Yes, but I'm a servant of the family. If I say something bad about the head of the family, I'll get my salary cut immediately." As he walked, he held out his hand with a calm expression. "I swear I won't let you get a pay cut. And if you take my side..." She grumbled as she ran after him. "The master of the house is too strict. How could he not understand your feelings?" He sat on the chair, lost in thought. "Anyway, I've tried my best to adapt to life here and be a useful citizen, all while watching my brothers grow up." Thinking carefully, he concluded, "I can't keep going on like this. My lifespan. Even now, it's still decreasing." The system informed him, "Due to your incurable disease, your remaining days to live are 147. His hands clenched into fists, trembling slightly with anger. "This damn system. It's more dedicated to my life than I am. Thanks for explaining it so thoroughly." He slammed his hand on the chair in protest. "I can't take this anymore. I have to go find Father and ask for his permission to go out." He called for Rona, and she opened the door, answering, "What is it? I was just heating up some more warm water for a bath." Suddenly, there was a knock, knock, knock at the main door. A man entered and gave a polite bow. "Young master?" It was the butler, Rothwell. He informed him, "The head of the house has summoned you." Nock looked up, a little surprised by his words. The scene changes to a battle, filled with dead soldiers in a sea of blood, swords scattered everywhere. Flashing back to the past, Theo held his sword with incredible valor. It was the night of the purge. The sky was filled with red clouds and paimons were flying back and forth. Their faces were ferocious, as if they wanted to eat them alive. They moved and snarled as a valiant warrior brandished his sword and annihilated them all. He gripped the sword, still stained with blood. His eyes sharpened as he assessed the situation. Then he launched another series of attacks, wiping the paimons out. He sat on a chair, eyes closed, reminiscing about the past. The day the horde of monsters swarmed in, the people who were taken by them, and the night of the purge. His eyes were half open. It all felt like a nightmare. He sat on the chair in the room, lost in thought, calculating the future. Someday, one of my sons might learn how to use the Supreme Black Sword, he considered, looking slightly weary. However, I shouldn't rely too much on my instincts. Betting on one with real talent is still much safer. because one of them will eventually have to kill me with their own hands." From outside, a voice called to him, "Sir, the young master is almost here." The butler, Rothwell, entered and reported to him. He replied softly, "Too late." He ordered, "Drag him here at once." In his mind, Theo thought, the Forest of Lost Children is a place that even I don't know how to wipe out, and yet that kid Nock managed to do it. This time I should praise him. He then continued to think about the reason the reward was so delayed. It's because of the strong opposition from the family's vassals. His eyes were fixed on the report from the comprehensive investigation. This made him hesitate and continue to ponder. Those vassals didn't believe that Nock, a good-for-nothing kid, could change so drastically, and they began to investigate whether Nock had truly cleared that forest or not. Theo propped his chin on his hand and thought to himself, "Even I cannot ignore the opinions of the family's vassals." So proceeding with an investigation was a necessary step. Suddenly, someone opened the door, causing him to look up. The person who entered was Nock. He bowed politely and said, "It is an honor to meet you, head of the house." Seeing this, the man immediately said, "You may rise." The boy quickly stood up and replied, "Yes, sir." Then the man slowly said to him, "I'm sure you already know that your impulsive actions were wrong." Nock lowered his head and replied, "Yes, sir." The man clasped his hands together and spoke to him. "However, fulfilling my duty is my responsibility. Even if someone is incompetent and useless, a person who has achieved something still deserves a reward. I have called you here to discuss your reward." Hearing him say that, the boy asked in bewilderment, "A wish?" The man looked at him and said calmly, "I will grant any one wish you have." "Anything?" Hearing him say that, countless doubts appeared in the boy's mind. "What? Dad is saying I can have anything I want?" He looked at the man's mysterious face. He thought to himself, "Even for a hardcore lunatic-level grinder like me, this is the first time I've ever seen Theo offer a reward." His face was deep in thought. "He's usually so overpowered and strict, isn't he? This feels like I've just been shot in the head." "No, it's more like being stabbed in the back." Immediately, the boy said clearly, "Anything at all?" The man looked at him for a few seconds, then stood up, slammed his hands on the table, and said in a loud voice, "I will give you anything, as the head of House Wren Harper." He then continued, "This promise is absolute. I swear it on the ever-glorious history of the Black Sword." Seeing the man's serious expression, the boy thought to himself, "I thought he was joking, but he's dead serious." "Yes, sir?" Then the man spoke up. "Of course, if the request is too ridiculous, then I will have to reconsider my opinion of you. However, I trust you will not ask for such a thing." Hearing that, the boy calmly said, "Of course. Father, please give me some time to think." Hearing that, the man said to him, "Very well. For now, I will lift your confinement." "Yes, sir." At that moment, the man set a condition for Nock. "However, you are not allowed to cause trouble again like last time." The boy immediately agreed. "Yes, head of the house." The man continued, "You must always remember in your heart that you are of House Wren Harper." The next day, everyone had gathered in the hall. A girl with a kind face wore a gentle smile. The orange-haired girl said her goodbyes. "Well then, I'll see you at the LD Academy." Nock avoided her words. She was still cheerful and said to him, "I'll come see you after that." "Got it?" Seeing this, the butler said to Nock, "Young master, you should answer the young lady's question." Hearing that, the boy sighed in complete helplessness and agreed, Yeah, fine." He then said to the girl, "On one condition. You have to become an official knight before then." She was overjoyed and made him promise, "You'd better keep that promise." He then told her, "At the very least, try not to freak out and panic the next time you see a giant spider." Hearing that, the girl's face clearly fell, and she immediately landed a powerful punch right in his stomach. Taking the full force of the blow, Nock thought angrily, "I knew I shouldn't have mentioned spiders." He then looked up at the sky thinking, "I should have just said it was a wolf." The girl gathered all her courage and said to him, "Anyway, I'll be back after I become an official knight, so you'd better watch your head carefully until we meet again." Hearing this, the boy was stunned, thinking in fear, "My head? Is she planning to chop my head off?" At that moment, the maid spoke up to thank him. "Thank you, everyone, for everything, especially you, young Master Nock." Hearing this, he spoke to her. "What do the Steiners have to do with me that requires your thanks?" The maid smiled. Thank you for saving Lady Thalia." Hearing this, his face remained expressionless. He then sighed and said, "Well, I didn't intend to save her in the first place." He then subtly dismissed her. "All right, go on now. Don't bother me anymore." He glanced behind him and thought to himself, and that's one person gone. Nock gazed at the falling leaves, his heart full of thoughts. I wonder why I feel like I'm gradually getting used to this strange life, though I don't know the reason. He rubbed his stomach and thought, but it's also quite fun. Suddenly, the system appeared with a notification. Due to an incurable disease, your remaining days to live are 146. His face was blank with shock. He stared at the sky and thought, 146 days. There's no more time to relax. A few days later, Rona entered the room and said to Nock, "By the way, sir, you'll need to find a new maid and an attendant." Hearing that, he began to think, "A maid, huh? Now that you mention it." Just then, the butler entered and greeted him. "Good morning, young master." Seeing him, Nock asked, "Rosweise, what is it?" He pointed behind him and said, "Eldon Academy has sent a trainee maid to serve you, starting from today. This young lady will be serving you, so I brought her to pay her respects first." The girl bowed politely and introduced herself. "It is an honor to meet you, young master. My name is Jichi de Lovelian. I will begin as your exclusive maid starting today." Hearing this, he also introduced himself to her. "I am Nock von Forscha." His gaze towards Lovelian was piercing as he thought, "She is?" But very quickly the system displayed a stream of information about her. Name, Jichi de Lovelian. Gender, female. Age, 15. Race, human. Primary element, earth. Talent, 4 pros. Appreciates talent, neutral, dedicated. Cons, two-faced, pitiful, machine-like, master liar, spy. Stamina, 8. Mana, 5. Luck, 1. Willpower, 3. Charm, 22. The system continued to display a notification. Passive skill, exceptional at housekeeping. Active skill, none. Current situation. The controlled subject is currently acting under the orders of Thavon, Renharfer. It then displayed information about the current situation for him. Current situation. The controlled subject is currently acting under the orders of Thavon Renharfer. Yes, I will do my utmost to support you. I knew it. They weren't going to let me leave this place in peace. Thavon Renharfer, one of the greatest villains and one of the most powerful figures in this entire world. When people wonder how he could possibly have achieved his current position, many have asked if he climbed to that rank using his swordsmanship alone. He's brilliant. There's no doubt about that. However, the main reason Thavon was able to climb to the role of head of the Renharfer family is because he is suspicious and distrustful of everything and everyone around him. This time, I have great expectations for you. Yes, my lord. I heard you lost your position as the heir to the Lovelian family. If you perform well this time, the Renharfer family will not hesitate to support you in that succession. I will support the young master with all my heart. No. I will monitor him closely and report everything back to you, my lord. Do not forget who your master is from this moment on. I can't hesitate for a second longer. A spy, huh? Thevan probably wants to confirm whether the person inside this body is really Nock or not. Because demonic possession isn't exactly rare in Inner Lunatic, and Nock is a character whose soul was stolen by a demon countless times in the main story. But, that's fine. As long as he doesn't find out my true identity. But the problem here is Jichi de Lovelian, even though she's not particularly relevant to the main plot. It would be a waste to just cast her aside like this. She was originally destined to become the heir and head of the Lovelian family, but her parents were murdered at the hands of her own uncle. And then after that, she lost her position as the family's next heir. What happened next is obvious. In the end, she became a maid serving the Renharfer family. In order to escape the surveillance of her own family, she wears a cheerful, ever-smiling mask on the outside, but pros, backed by a genius. Neutral, honest. Cons, two-faced, anguished, works mechanically, lies for self-preservation, spy. Her mind is already exhausted and rotten. A character on the verge of a complete mental collapse. And so, her final decision, before the first part of the main story even begins, was to take her own life. What should I do? Is changing the storyline by saving someone who was destined to die the right decision? Even though I know that if I do so, it's no different from putting my own neck in a noose. The next day, From this day forward, we will hunt monsters in the forest within my territory. Of course, you two will follow and support me. What? Hunting monsters in the territory? I'm calling in sick. Understood. Jitsi, you can't just agree with everything like that. It's normal for a maid to be scared of monster hunting. It's a ridiculous request after all. Replying right away, are we? Rona, I know you've already used up all your paid leave. You won't be taking a sick day today. How could you do this, sir? Have you forgotten? I'm just a good-for-nothing, incompetent fool. If you don't do as I say, I'll cut your pay. I'll only go easy on the beginners. What about half my usual pay? Do you want me to bring a bow or a sword, young master? Should I inform Sir Roswell that you'll be leaving the mansion? Before we get ready... Right. The priority now is to extend my lifespan, because now I can go anywhere I want. Young master, wait for me! A few days later, the forest of lost children was gradually becoming a normal forest after being cleared out. A ferocious wolf let out a terrifying howl. Nock moved with swift agility, his face cold and expressionless as he attacked. He swung his sword with powerful, decisive strokes. The once ferocious wolf could now only whimper. It let out a few whimpers. That last slash yielded some spoils for Nock. You have siphoned a very small portion of the silver wolf's life force. The monster has been defeated. Only then could Nock breathe a sigh of relief. That victory also helped him. You have extended your life by 2 hours. He wondered to himself, have I finished off all the wolves in this area? Nock's gaze swept over the corpses of the wolves strewn across the grass. To think I gained 2 hours of life just from this one hunt. Other wolves shared the same fate, lying dead on the grass, their blood still fresh. Nock thought to himself with satisfaction, you could call this hunt a pretty big success. Right then, Zichi, who was observing from the side, smiled and spoke to Nock. It's been almost an hour since you started hunting. Aren't you tired, sir? Hearing this question, for some reason, Nock cursed inwardly. Damn it! He thought absently. Because I didn't activate genius time, this hunt took way too long. As Nock gently took the flask from the maid's hand, he thought to himself, that means I've only earned a single hour. I'm exhausted from fighting all this time. Nock chugged the flask of water in his hand. I knew the math wouldn't be perfect, but this is way off from my plan. And it's not like I can hunt monsters like this whenever I want. His thoughts kept racing. But the biggest threat is still, the number of monsters in this area is limited. While Zichi remained completely calm, Rona was panicking at the sight of the wolf corpses scattered about. Her face was pale, while Nock himself felt like collapsing. At this rate, my plan for a wonderful life is going to go up in smoke. Nock sighed. There just aren't enough monsters in this area. That's a huge problem, too. Facing her disheartened master, Zichi offered a strained smile to reassure him. I can't believe you think the number of monsters is the problem, sir. If anyone else heard you say that, they'd think you've turned into some kind of weirdo. Rona, on the other hand, shrieked in shock. Young master! What are you talking about? Suddenly, Nock noticed something, his eyes widening slightly. A strange light had appeared deep inside the forest. But Nock quickly averted his gaze and said to the two maids, well, it can't be helped. Let's head back to the mansion. The two replied in unison. Yes, young master. Zichi, ever so thoughtful, asked Nock, shall I prepare a warm bath for you? I'll prepare it at the most comfortable temperature. Just as expected from a genius supporter, Nock thought. Then he said aloud, all right, I want to take a bath before dinner, so make sure the timing is perfect. Zichi beamed like a flower. Of course. Please leave it to me. Rona hurriedly chimed in from behind. Young master, don't forget about me. I'll clean your room for you, sir, Nock replied curtly. Ah, fine. Do whatever you want. Yes, sir. And with that, Rona immediately grabbed the basket and bow and hurried away. Zichi still wore a shy, gentle smile on her face. Just then, Nock called out to her. Zichi. She immediately replied, yes, young master? Nock looked down, his expression suddenly tinged with sadness. I have a question for you. Hearing this, Zichi suddenly clutched the hem of her skirt, her body tensing slightly. Nock stared at her intently and asked, who do you serve? Zichi was taken aback by the sudden question. So DJ Cheater has been gone for a while, huh? Just then, Nock's power was supplemented with the attributes. Positive genius support, neutral genius support, negative focus, two-faced, pitiful, and robotic. Nock looked at the system panel and thought, no matter how beautiful a greatsword is, it's useless if I can't wield it. Thinking this, he stared intently at DJ. A thought flashed through his mind. In that case, I'll just throw it away without hesitation. While the young master was waiting for an answer, confusion was clearly written on DJ's face. But seeing her silence, Nock pressed on. "So is that your answer?" "That—" Jichi looked bewildered as sweat started to bead on her forehead. I haven't said anything yet." Jichi hurriedly tried to explain. "Young master, But before she could finish, Nock cut her off.
I know what you want to say."
He still looked at Jichi with suspicious eyes. "Don't worry. I have no intention of pressuring you any further," Nock continued. "I'm actually very grateful to you. At least you didn't lie." Hearing these words, Jichi could only remain silent, her eyes showing clear anxiety, unease, and shock as she faced the trembling girl. Nock calmly said, "It doesn't matter who you serve. I will treat you as my own subordinate." Hearing this, Jichi was even more surprised. Nock turned to leave, adding softly, "If you need to, feel free to use me as you please. That's all I wanted to say." Watching his retreating back, Jichi could only stand frozen. Meanwhile, thoughts began to stir in Nock's mind. It was similar to having faith in each other, but he figured, wouldn't it be more logical if the two of them could simply use one another? Then Jichi slumped down, disappointment clear in her eyes. So Nock had realized it after all. That's why he thought, in any case, that's the kind of relationship I want to have with her. Night gradually fell. Inside the mansion, a gentle sound drifted out. "It's true." It was Rona. Lying on her bed, she mumbled a few words. "Isn't young Master Nock a bit too harsh? He'd say things just like—" As she spoke, Rona pictured Nock as a smiling devil. Rona even imagined his dark voice. "If you don't keep up with me, what's the fun in training?" Rona, still seeming resentful, clenched her fists and muttered, "Every time we go to train—" Then she turned and asked, "Don't you think he's too harsh?" Jichi just smiled lightly and replied, "I suppose so." Jichi gazed softly out the window as thoughts began to rise within her. The rumor that young Master Nock's personality had completely changed, a rumor she'd heard from countless people back when she was with the Luivia family. As she thought, she felt a restlessness in her heart. I thought that rumor was baseless because for a person, to change that much is incredibly rare. Jichi began to recall the image of Nock swinging his sword to take down the wolves at that time, but they said he took down the twins in a single blow and earned the right to enter the academy. And he's also the one who secured his position in the family, completely different from me. Jichi started to feel hopeless as she thought about her own situation now, a fallen one, despite once being the rightful heir of my family. Her hand lightly touched her pendant.
What he told me today.
Jichi recalled Nock's words from earlier. "Then feel free to use me as you please, that's all I wanted to say." Jichi thought hazily, what on earth did he mean by that? A short time later, a baseless rumor appeared within the Rainforest family. The rumor claimed that Jichi had been expelled from her own family and was no longer worthy of being a maid for the Rainforest family. Her hand, holding a letter, dropped in disappointment. The words on the paper were written clearly, one by one. "Listen up, Yuchi Zaloi Villa. You, the head of a useless family, you have been sold off by your own clan. You shall receive a fitting punishment." Jichi's hand tightened in anger and despair. The words from the letter were seared into her mind. She had been stripped of any rights she had, as the direct heir of her family. The more she thought about it, the more she cried. Her eyes showed deep sorrow, yet her lips seemed to be forming a slight smile. "It seems I won't be able to stay in the Wren Harper family any longer either," she thought absently. It was to be expected. The Wren Harper family is one of the top families of the Dark Clan. Jichi thought, even though I was only being used as a maid. For one of their children. She leaned against the wall and sighed in relief. For a commoner like me who has just lost her title, I don't even have the right to serve him. She quietly opened the door, preparing to leave. I'll be disposed of soon and will be serving a new master before long. With that thought, Jichi left decisively. She threw open the door and laughed loudly. "Hello?" The other maids working in the kitchen all turned to look at her with expressions of slight apprehension and distance. The weather today didn't seem favorable. The sky was gradually darkening, and birds were spreading their wings to return to their nests. Suddenly, a white wolf let out a terrible howl as it was slashed across the chest. It immediately collapsed to the ground. Seeing Nock decisively finish off the wolf, Rona whispered to Jichi, "Don't you think She felt that there wasn't a trace of joy on his face after killing the wolf. Does the young master seem more strained than usual today? But Rona couldn't believe her eyes, because he was so different from before. In the past, he even had a bit of mercy. Her mind was now filled with question marks, but today he was a little... Jichi was curious about everything that had happened. That caused Nock to change so drastically. Is it really true? Of course, she was also very worried about him. This makes me a little uncomfortable. Nock's sword was covered in the wolf's blood. This was unavoidable. He closed his eyes and plunged his sword into the ground, causing the remaining drops of blood to spatter onto his clothes. It was unclear what he was waiting for. He looked as if he was on the verge of disappointment. It's about time for that thing to appear. So it's not planning on showing up today either, huh? According to what Nock knows, in the Lost Forest, a mysterious monster will appear when the monster population in the forest drops to about 20%. It's the hidden boss. Sheathing his sword, he had already taken care of countless white wolves, hoping to speed things up. I was even thinking of killing it to help increase my stat points, but I guess it's no use. But suddenly, in a nearby bush, a sound appeared, rustling the leaves. It was just enough to catch Nock's attention as he was preparing to leave. Before he could even get a look, it suddenly dashed right past him and vanished. He couldn't even make out its shape. This was completely beyond Nock's expectations. The monster was faster than the wind. Its speed was on a completely different level. But that only made Nock more excited. He immediately confirmed it. I knew it! A hidden boss has to be just like this. But there wasn't a single moment to rest. Nock had to fight a giant bee, a special breed king hornet. Damn, this thing is going to be a pain. With his supreme skills, he easily dodged the attacks the monster unleashed. But it's not like this is something I can't take down. While he was fighting with all his might, one of the two maids called out to Nock, making him turn his head. Young master! Jichi's face showed clear shock, and he had no idea what was happening to her. It was unimaginable that she had blocked one of the monster's attacks for Nock. But he didn't think for a second that what she did was noble, because the confidence in his own abilities was ever present in his mind. Even without Jichi's help, that was an attack I could have completely dodged or blocked. So why would she save me? He froze for 5 seconds, unable to process what had happened because everything unfolded so quickly. But regardless, he recognized Jichi's courage in the face of the monster. I wonder how many people could rush at a monster that suddenly appeared. As she fell, he didn't even know what was going through his own mind. His words and thoughts didn't match at all. I'll make good use of this. It's all to save her. Nock's anger was visible on his face, his gritted teeth looking like he wanted to grind the monster to dust. Immediately, the system activated. The skill Genius Time has been activated. Meanwhile, she sat crying on the floor. Her parents didn't even try to find out why, just stood to the side, talking back and forth. Oh my, why does our precious Jichi keep falling down like this? Yes, Mom's right. There hadn't been a single day where the wounds on the girl's knees had fully healed. I, Jichi, watched their retreating backs in the past, a worry that had besieged me for so long. That's what my parents used to tell me, that my wounds never fully healed. And even now, that thought made me uneasy. However, it didn't just apply to the wounds on my knees, but to the wounds in my heart as well. I wonder if it was a prophecy for my own future. Nock suddenly turned and asked Jichi, "Who do you serve?" His out-of-the-blue question left her flustered, unsure how to answer. Who do I serve?" The figure of a man appeared in Jichi's mind. It was her father, smiling brightly. Then the painful memory resurfaced. A man who had mercilessly slaughtered his own relatives, all to seize the position of family head. Jichi, one day you will be mine. Her thoughts were in turmoil. Who should I serve now? Another man's voice appeared with cryptic words. Who do you serve? If you need to, feel free to use me because I will be using you too. Meanwhile, he and Rona were extremely worried about her current condition. A system notification was sent to Nock. You have defeated the monster. You will be granted a special reward. It was hard to tell if the drops on his face were sweat or tears. Just one look was enough to see how worried he was for Jichi. Just hold on a little longer. Nock didn't forget to reassure her. Everything's all right now. I'm taking you back now. Rona also advised him not to stay. Young master, we need to return to the mansion quickly. All Jichi could see was him. She, the one who was seriously injured, felt no pain. Instead, she blamed herself for being such a liar. Is that really the expression of someone who plans to use me? The eyes are the window to the soul. She listened to her own heart. I wonder why. The image of him before Jichi's eyes began to blur. like glass fogged with steam.
Why do I feel a stir in my heart?
Her train of thought was suddenly cut off as her tears fell, and there was anger in his words too. Teo held the letter, his face showing clear displeasure. This is truly a complicated mess. The butler has already investigated her background to the very root. Based on our investigation, the contents of this letter are true. The Loy Villa family has indeed decided to completely sever all ties with her. To him, she was always just a pawn, the very reason he brought Daijichi to this place, all to seize control of the Lovefilia family. Theo's schemes were beyond imagination. In the end, she was the only one left in the dark because they had already lost the head of the family. They're in an incredibly unstable situation. I was thinking this would be the perfect opportunity to take over that family, assuming things inside are unstable enough. If the heir's position is also wavering, then like a knight on a chessboard, we'll do whatever it takes to strengthen our house with the Wren Harper family's intervention. We'll be able to make them bow their heads to us one way or another. The letter in his hand made Teo anxious. But what if Jichi is exiled from that family? You have been stripped of all rights you held as a direct descendant. What if that happens before any of our plans can even be set in motion? Realizing she was of no use, he asked the butler for his opinion. Then there's no other way. What do you think we should do with Jichi? It's always for the greater good of Rothwell to protect the interests of the family, of our master, although it is most regrettable. But we cannot allow a maid who belongs to no family to be by young Master Knox's side, taking care of him. We would be looked down upon at Eldon Academy if we did that. I see the butler already has a plan. I think we need to handle this problem quietly by ourselves. Teo agreed with his opinion. I think so too. Suddenly, the door burst open. A servant rushed in, panting, "Sir!" But this breach of etiquette enraged the butler. "How dare you barge in here without permission?" He gasped for breath. "My apologies, sir." The news the servant brought made Teo's expression change. Young Master Knox brought back an injured maid during his trip. He calmly recounted everything that happened. That maid was poisoned on his recent hunt and is now in critical condition. He used a large amount of very expensive antidote, without permission, so I came here to report it, sir. Rothwell guessed immediately. Knowing Knox's eye for expensive things. Don't tell me he used the ginseng elixir. The servant hesitated, but then told the truth. Yes, sir. The wrinkles on his forehead deepened, thanks in part to that boy. That stuff costs a fortune. Worry was written all over his face. I can't control Knox anymore. Did that kid get close to that maid so quickly? When Teo wanted nothing to do with her and Knox getting involved, no one can predict the consequences of such personal emotions. Someone's voice calling for her to wake up echoed through the mansion. Jichi? Rona had been by Jichi's side, taking care of her. Oh, you're awake? Tears and snot streamed down her face. Rona clutched the blanket and sobbed. You're awake. I'm so happy. Even at a time like this, Jichi was still worried about him. What just happened? Is young Master Knox safe? But now, she recalled with a shock her own brave actions. How could I have dared to do that? With Rona's goldfish memory, a few key words were enough. The young master used a dose of antidote to help you. What was it called? Ginseng something? I saw the whole thing. Anyway, he used it, and they say it's really good stuff. The physician was utterly bewildered. Sir? Knox stood his ground and ordered, save her. It even surprised Rona. He completely ignored the physician's refusal, you know? And he said, use it on her, unless you want to die. Even though she's his personal maid, Rona could badmouth her master at any time. I guess that useless good-for-nothing side of him is still wrapped in white bandages. Jichi couldn't help but wonder. Ginseng? Why would he do that? Her hand trembled, clutching a corner of the blanket. Wasn't he just planning to use me? Rona saw her trying to get out of bed and quickly rushed to stop her. Jichi! You need to rest more. Is your wound okay? But she just wanted to find him to get answers. Where is young Master Knox right now? Only then did Rona remember his instructions. He's looking for the Chamberlain. Oh, he told me to report to him as soon as you woke up. Before leaving, she didn't forget to remind Jichi. I'll be back soon. Remember to get plenty of rest, okay? After the door closed, the room fell silent. As expected, Jichi didn't listen and immediately stepped out of bed. She walked towards her suitcase. I wonder what she's looking for. Jichi carefully rearranged the scattered books. She also folded the shirts neatly. I shouldn't be here. The truth is, Jichi not only had low self-esteem, but she also tormented herself with it, feeling that she no longer deserved to be anywhere. Though heartbroken, she could only clutch her locket and leave. In silence, She gently opened the locket. Jichi treasured it so much because inside was a picture of her parents. Decisively, she took the picture out, looked at it for a moment before returning the locket to its owner. Jichi left a letter with the locket. "Young master, I heard that you gave me a miraculous medicine. I believe it was not easy to obtain, even though she didn't want to leave." She looked regretfully at the letter she wrote. "Thank you for saving my life." Through the window pane, the letter and the necklace could be seen. Her suitcase was nearly empty. But at this moment, her hands began to tremble. His familiar voice was enough to make her freeze. "And just where do you think you're going?" Unbelievable. That she and Nock would meet again on this very road. He hadn't even had time to change his clothes, rushing to find her. "I'll ask again. Where are you going?"
"Hey!" Nock was inexplicably furious. "Someone is about to die and the only thing you care about is how expensive the medicine is?"
Rossweiss timidly replied, No, that's not it." He explained, "If I don't have the Patriarch's permission to use this medicine, then I can't use it. Besides, how could I possibly go against the Patriarch? It's not possible." Digichi was covered in blood, unconscious. Nock's face darkened as he questioned Rossweiss. "Are you of a higher rank than me in this family?"
"Answer me!"
Sweating nervously, he hesitated and said, I apologize, sir." He immediately gave an order. "I will explain this to my father myself later. Now hurry up." Hearing this, Rossweiss immediately got to work, replying, "I understand, sir." Rona stood by the bed with tears in her eyes, asking, "Will Digichi be all right?" Rossweiss took the vial of medicine and gave it to Digichi, answering, "The poison's effects have been neutralized now. She'll recover soon." Rona sighed in relief. "Thank goodness." Seeing Nock's dazed expression, Rona called out, "Young master." He stepped outside, saying, "Come and inform me personally when Digichi wakes up." A voice echoed in the luxurious room. "What is it?" It was Nock's father, Theo. He continued, "You rarely come to see me on your own. Is it because of that maid?" Nock knelt on the floor, his expression dark. "Master Actor has been activated." Theo, sitting quietly in his chair, spoke up. "Is it about just one thing?" Kneeling with his head bowed to the floor, he said, "I remember you once said you would grant one wish of mine." Theo replied, "That's right." But Nock's eyes grew resolute. He declared, "Digichi Z love Philia. I want you to give her to me. She's someone who has been cast out from her own family." Theo looked down, deep in thought. Nock thought to himself, a butterfly effect that will influence the main story. Later on, so what if she's Theo's spy? That doesn't matter anymore. Nock recalled the events of the day. Today, when I saw her trying to save me, I realized a few things. He thought back to before, to the answer she didn't give me clearly last time. Nock recalled the image of Digichi kneeling, thinking, Digichi has already shown me with her actions. Then Theo replied, I understand. If that is what you wish, it shall be done. The next moment, Nock stood up, about to turn and leave, but he spoke to his father once more. Patriarch, this unworthy son of yours has one more matter to report. Oh? Theo consented. Speak, he said, even if you are my father. A notification appeared. Warning, the effectiveness of Master Actor is decreasing due to your agitated state. But Nock angrily cried out, Please, do not bother my people anymore, he finished. In a dark room, Nock looked at the green-haired girl holding a suitcase and asked, And just where do you think you're going? Nock, Digichi replied. About that. I'm about to leave this place. I feel like I don't belong here anymore. She continued, trembling as she spoke. Thank you, sir, for everything you have done for me. Hearing this, Nock said, I will ask you one more time. His expression calmer, he asked, Where are you going, instead of serving me? My maid. Digichi lowered her head, hesitating. But you already know the answer. I received an order from the Patriarch to monitor you, which means I have deceived you. She cried pitifully as she spoke, then questioned him, But why are you trying to keep me here? I deceived you. She cried out, I would have no grounds to complain even if you threw me out this instant. So why? Nock looked at her and thought to himself, So this is the real Digichi. Behind her actress facade, this side of her is more like a real person. A person who chooses not to give up and struggles to push through that moment, no matter how difficult or dark it may be. He spoke softly. People often deceive each other a lot in the beginning, you know. Dichi cried out, But my lord, I've wronged you so terribly. He replied, That's precisely the reason. He continued, After causing such a mess, you think you can just leave without making amends to me? Whoever said I would allow you to leave like that? Dichi replied. My apologies, my lord. Nock reached his hand out to her, saying, Dichi, you will stay here. I don't care what my father thinks. I don't need the Love Villa family name. In your name. Then he stepped closer, placed a hand on his chest, and said, I only need your talent. Hearing this, Dichi whispered, Young master. Nock walked past her and declared, That is why I want you to stay. Help me, stand by my side until you have atoned for the mistake you've made, as my personal maid. Hearing this, Dichi froze, surprised, but a moment later, moved to tears, she replied, I understand, young Master Nock. As Nock walked away, Dichi turned slightly to watch him, vowing, I will be by your side, forever, and I will always be there to help you. Nock smiled and called out, Excellent. Suddenly, Dichi asked, You've asked me this question before. You asked me who I served, didn't you? He answered, Yes, that's right. She then replied, Now you know who that person is, don't you? Nock said softly, Yes, I know. I know who it is now.